And so we are live once again. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another installment of Wrist Shot Week. And let's begin by just asking whether or not you can hear me okay. Oh, geez, don't tell me. Haven't shared the screen. What a surprise. You won't believe what's just happened as, as I got into preparing and getting the show done. 15 minutes before the show starts, I plug in the microphone, plug in the headset. Guess what? It's a dead stick. So we are back to using good old Bose. Can you hear me? Comment one in the chat. It's a good way to start. Welcome everyone who's joining us. Yeah, I'll tell you about that in a second. Chi-Town, Clive, ID Klein, Eric, great to have you all here. Thank you all so much for joining. I see Blue Shirt Buddha's in the chat. Blue Shirt, I've got a request. I'd like to, maybe if I can email you privately, but I need some help with audio equipment. So I've been using a Sennheiser as a headset, okay? And it was great. It's a broadcasting microphone. It does a good job. But yeah, it's a dead stick. So Bang & Olufsen in the bin, Sennheiser in the bin. Bose seems to always work, but I really need some help. So it's good that you is the sound decent enough? Wonderful. Mr. C, $1. Thank you. Everyone who's joining, absolute pleasure. Dead stick is nothing to laugh at. Clive, you're always on point every single time. I don't know how you do it. There's so many of you here. Welcome. Thank you all for joining. Let's get right into the show because we have a lot of pieces on offer, as is always the case. It's been, what, 2 weeks since we last did a show? And yeah, it's been crazy. The best part of all is that over the last 2 weeks, I've actually been able to get out and meet some of you in person. I think if Curtis is in the chat, he knows. Sound is great. Thank you, Amin. Okay, if you'd like to get my attention, tag me in the chat at IDGuy. I'll be able to see it easier. And Chi-Town says you can't go wrong with Shure microphones. They're the Hamilton of mics. I'm going to have a good look. I'm going to reinvest another $200 into another one because Sennheiser has let me down, which is abysmal. Okay, and I've literally had them for like 2 weeks. It's a joke. Right, so let's start. How should we warm up? It's been a while. It's been like 2 weeks. Going to get into the zone. Your submissions have been fantastic, as is always the case. Watch and pray, read, all of you here. I'm going to try my utmost to catch up with you in the chat. Blue Shirt, great to have you. I don't know if you heard me earlier, but I'd love your advice when it comes to headsets and audio equipment because I am struggling big time. My latest headset just died on me, and your audio is phenomenal. When I've heard you join in other shows, it is cut above the rest. So I'd love to hear it. But yeah. Everyone else, let's hit the water and start the show because the variety is amazing, as per usual. We've got about 120 submissions or so to go through, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen. Hitting the water and starting fresh. Yeah, Clive, I've been hearing about that. That's the latest news. And Curtis, great having you here. We'll be sure to chat about you in a sec. James, good to have you, sir. And yeah, the rest of you, all of you, there's 85 of you watching already. It's a pleasure having you. Thank you, everyone who submitted watches to the show. It's what makes the show so special. And yeah, let's just get the ball rolling. Start with the little Smith's W10. This watch has changed my opinion on a lot of things. And I did a review video of this. It came out earlier this week. And it was interesting because the whole discussion looks at why you should look into field watches. What about them speaks to you? And there's something about this watch. I'm really kicking myself that I didn't get into the watch hobby when I was in high school. Because if I had this watch in high school, I think my perspective on the hobby would change completely at this point. And that is how it is. And it's just fantastic. It's one of those, the way the design has been exercised as something that is not built to fit a certain time period. It's not fashionable. It's just built for function, you know? Because of that, it's been able to withstand the test of time and last so much longer. And it's not pretentious. It's not trying to be anything that it's not. It's just time-telling, excellent amount of lume. And so it is. I mean, just a great piece. I'm loving the hell out of it. To the rest of you in the chat, if I do miss you, the chat's going wild. It's a pleasure having you here. All of you who are joining. Right. And again, tag me in the chat if you want to get my attention. I'll be able to see it a lot easier. And let's get started. So W10, I've been wearing this watch all week. And if Curtis is in the chat, I saw him a second ago. He has donated another drink to the channel. It's been 2.5 weeks. Don't worry. I don't have a problem. most of us in this hobby do have a problem, but I've been sharing this fairly well with the family and everything else. Just a standard Bulliet bourbon. It's fantastic. It's a really great whiskey. Much better than the standard stuff that we see on this channel. Javier, if let's see, I'll have a look at your name here under J. Juan. No. The worst part is I probably doomed it with the email address. You'll see the email in the description of this video. If it's not character correct, the email won't come in, which is a real bummer. So Javier, I didn't see your email in. Really sorry about that. But yeah, as is the case, I save about over 100 submissions during the week. So if I do miss your name, it happens at times. Anyway, the rest of you here, I've never had a problem. Clive, again, these chats are going so fast. There's like 3 per second. I'm a Seikoholism. Anyway, so yeah, this Bulliet is fantastic. I thought I'd just put the aviators in with the Smiths. And let's just get to the first piece of the show and get started. How could this not be the cover photo? Old man's Ray-Bans. No, they're mine. They're mine, Eric. They're polarized. My old man has ones from the 70s. They're pretty amazing. They're solid gold and everything. So Zodiac Aerospace GMT. How could this not be the watch for the show? Because just look at it. And the best part is Jeremy, who sent this in, he is a photographist. I think he told me. And you can just see by the way he's presented it is fantastic. Seeing it on the right wrist for a change, fantastic. And Marcello, great to have you here. Yes. Curtis said, I meant to get a bottle of Gentleman Jack duty-free, but forgot. Don't worry about it. Really don't worry about it. So yeah, starting off with the Zodiac Aerospace GMT. This, as a brand, Zodiac is doing a great job with bringing out these reissues and approaching it in a very faithful way to their traditions. Did the Zodiac killer wear a Zodiac? Truth Fears asks. Probably not. No. You probably find that they wear the most. It would have been a Timex of all things. But yeah. So I've handled one of these in the past, a vintage from the early 50s, and it had full Bakelite bezel. It was stretch riveted bracelet, and they are charming watches. They really are. When you see something like this presented as it is, it's hard to deny that it is a great looking piece just for an everyday wearer, something that you can bash around. And yeah, talking about Zodiac, there are a few in the show, I think. There's some Glycine Airmans, I think, as well. And they all fall into that same category. I mean, they've become so popular over time for many reasons, just because of their affordability, mainly. That was the history, right? The development of that. But everything, you can see by the way the batons have been done and the hands and the placement of everything there, it's just so clean. The way they've done the bezels, it looks like Bakelite, which is also something pretty special. And I just love the presentation on the page. We've got a Swiss Army knife, we've got a compass, we've got a map. Oops. And yeah, so this was the cover photo. There were a few more that were close contenders that we will be seeing. And the variety is very good because we are going to see pieces that are pretty attainable in the scheme of things. They're not heavy duty. There are some great horology pieces at the end of the show, courtesy of Russell. But on the whole, it's most of the watches that we're looking at are quote unquote attainable for most of us. And that's a bonus. We get to see what makes this whole segment fantastic is we get to see what everyone else is wearing. And yeah, it's always a joy. There was a comment by Clive that was good. Bashing around Bakelite. Yeah, you want to consider that? No. Talking about these modern pieces, you definitely don't want to bash around Bakelite or even look at it funny because you know what's going to happen. Anyway, Jeremy, thank you for sending this in. I absolutely love the presentation. If you want your photo to be considered as a cover photo, this is the way it's done. Presentation-wise, the way that there's extra sleeve here so you can put some text on it. Being on the right wrist is bonus points because some of us are lefties here, which is great. And Demetrius is joining. Welcome all of you who are. I miss a lot of you at times, but that's always the way it is. Anyway, moving on next to Adam, and he sends in a Speedmaster Hesalite that has been, I looked at it closely and thought to myself, has he been handling pocket knives around it? Because this is quite insane. You don't see Hesalite that has this level of very diagonal scratches, you know, instead of the stand. I mean, you would expect this kind of damage to the crystal, but not vertical lines. I feel like he was bored one day and decided to take the car keys to it, but it looks good, as is always. Yeah, and everyone's chatting about the Zodiac killer. It's a great way to start. Yeah. So how's everyone doing? Jeez, it's been, again, 2 weeks. I've missed a lot of you guys. It's been good to kick back and not think about watches for a while. Focus more on the editing side and the, just production and thinking of new ideas and videos to be coming out in the future. Taking a hit from the bullet. Super Steel says, just purchased a 2018 Blue Tudor Black Bay. It's my everyday watch. Good purchase or not? 35,000 Australian, 3,500, excuse me. I don't know. Someone in the chat asked about this because I am by no means a numbers junkie in this game, for sure. Don't keep a speedy with your car keys. That's good. Anyway, yeah, this great looking piece. I mean, it's a good way to start with a professional. And there's a few of us here. Bjornar, if you're in the chat, the way to pronounce your name, I try to check it out. It's Bjornar, right? The pieces that we are going to be showing from you, pretty special. In the next 20 or so in this lineup. Junior Lee asks, what do you think of Lange? I mean, you're going to be seeing some Langes at the end of the show, but there's lots. Again, tag me in the chat if you can, possibly, because I really struggle with keeping up with everything going on here. And something great to have you. You can't go wrong with Lange, no matter what anyone says, I think, as far as a brand. It's great. Actually, talking to a Lange collector, Russell, who Russell is, he told me that compared to the other big brands like Patek and the rest, even though Lange is not owned privately, it's owned by the Richemont group, I'm guessing. I'm never good with whatever. He says that they make you feel like you're a part of the family and the group, and you feel like you get special treatment as a customer, whether you're buying a Saxonia, whether you're buying Zeitwerks and the things that he collects. And it's that kind of relationship. I think it's good to get that kind of insider information with these pieces, or just with the brands in general. So often do you find that most brands, they don't care about their customers as much. We hear about what's coming up next week. I'm looking forward to September 1st and what's going to be happening. Russell, the Lange collector, yeah, thank you, Junior. He's more of a Patek collector, actually, which is pretty funny. But he has amazing Langes. So yeah, good to see that the Hesalite's being used for a change. I mean, we very seldomly see a Speedmaster looking this worn and used. Also nice seeing it on a Zulu strap. Okay, let's start getting into the heavy stuff. These are all from Alfredo. I think Alfredo is based in Los Angeles, if I remember from his email yesterday. Watch habit. Yes, I'm doing fantastic. I hope everyone else is doing well. Geez, I haven't even started that way. I hope everyone else is great and looking after yourselves. Thank you for the comment, Watch habit. Raymond asking, did I get your wrist shot of the... I'm going to botch that name, but yes, I did, and it's saved. Don't worry about it. Okay, someone's going to have to give me some help here because a lot of the time the pieces that come in, I don't have the full description sent in, so I just have to kind of fudge it and guess it. This looks like the Navy offshore, but it is an AP offshore. It looks pretty recent. I don't know if it's an earlier generation or not. and Fisto is saying that people have been talking about the Rolex models for months already bought. I know. It's... the funny thing is, I don't know if you saw my arbitrary prediction clip. I was so considering not doing it. I thought, I'm so sick of doing it. What's the point? And then instead of approaching it in the way of looking at what everyone else has been talking about, try to backtrack and reverse analyze what Tudor has been doing and try and relate that to the Rolex brand. And don't know what's going to happen, but it seems like it's out of the blue and it's a no-date sub. They need to do some more stuff, man. They need to like vary up their work. It's great. I mean, of course, it's a brand that we clearly know is one that is very anal retentive when it comes down to creating stuff and expanding their lines. But I mean, they've got so much variety on offer that they could expand upon. And it's great to see other brands. And I think what makes people so bored about the Rolex name is that you look at what other brands are trying to do. Trying. Not all of them succeeding. But it's good in the creative space. It's good to see variety, and it's good to see how approaches have been changed. Instead of just punching out the same old stuff, the VW Beetle year after year after year. You know what I mean? Anyway, yeah, talking about black bays and blue navies and all the rest. Mick from Florida. So no Palm Beach, all models including pink gold root beer GMT. Also stores in Worthington, Worth Avenue, loaded, usual stock. Interesting. Very interesting. It's difficult to even consider what the brand is doing, and there's theories and there's speculations everywhere. I don't have any insider information. It's all just guessing games. as is always the case. It's great to know a few people like Rolex Passion Report on Instagram, and we chat on occasion about things, but otherwise, everyone's guessing. And I don't have a Rolex on the screen. We're talking about AP, but it's in a similar way. We are seeing this restriction of watches coming out from them too. And very good point. Someone mentioned that I think Louis Vuitton did this. Or no, it was the Birkin bag. What company did that? It was Louis Vuitton, I think. They've been doing this restriction of supply for years and years. And these watch brands are now jumping on. My guess is Blue Explorer, and if everyone says, that'd be good. So I love the offshore. This is a fantastic collection from Alfredo. Let's get in and enjoy. Hermes, thank you guys. Shaitan and JH and We Watch Guy. Great. Glad to know. So the selection of pieces from Alfredo's, this is like a mini collection we're going to be looking at now. Love the offshore. I really enjoy the way they've done the numerals. It's like do they call it the safari dial because of how the numerals were done? Again, this was before my time of getting into the hobby, so really don't know. But I really do like the presentation here. And the legibility is also good. Seeing the numerals, seeing the hands, steel, basic rubber strap. You can wear this every day. It's a good size too. I think this is 42 mils. Okay, going to move through now what Alfredo also has next to the AP offshore. This is a vintage Navitimer. Now we're getting into the business. Navitimer, let's get this reference right. 24-hour dial, love that. Cosmonaut, reference 809 from 1966. Now we're getting in. Funny, next week, a video all about reissue chronographs. And that was a monster. Still haven't finished editing it, but it still is. It's 20 minutes long and it's not even halfway finished yet. That's how many reissue chronographs there are on the market. There was a good comment I saw a second ago by BDev, Rolex teaser out of the blue. That's what ADs will say. Sorry, we're out of the blue. It's actually a very terrible slogan to throw in because you could, marketing can be better, could be improved. It seems is it just me to consider that it seems kind of rushed when you think of it that way? Doesn't feel like they put much thought into it, but then do they have to? And a blue Submariner, it rides that perfect line of being just lazy enough for the brand to get away with it. And I find that entertaining. 24-hour Navi is beautiful. Beyond what it is stunning. This being from 1966, it's in all original condition. You get to see the tritium on the numerals are still, it's so well intact still. And of course, we know the 806 and the 765. Those are the recent reissues that have come out. But yeah, as far as an original vintage relic, this is in great shape. And I love we're going to run through the collection again once we've seen these pieces. So next from Alfredo is a Grand Seiko Sport. Hold on, it's a high beat. I know that. Grand Seiko Sport Ceramic GMT Special Edition. Okay, it's good enough. And again, we've just seen a offshore vintage Navitimer, Seiko, Grand Seiko Sport. We're going to find a lot of Grand Seikos and Seikos in general on the show, which is pretty amazing. Never do I ask for a theme, but often enough, generally the audience does find a theme amongst themselves and send in whatever, and it's great. So yeah, lots of Grand Seiko, lots of variety in this segment. Whirlpool dial, great point, Eric. I do really enjoy the 24-hour bezel. The polished ceramic, I don't like that much though. It is a full ceramic case, if I'm not wrong. Something tells me that a matte ceramic bezel would have probably worked a bit better in relationship with the Whirlpool dial. It's a bit too bright for what it is. And you want to read that 24-hour scale easily at a glance. The Grand Seiko with their polishing, it's unique, it's great. And there's another one, and this one is even better, I believe, being the Cherry Blossom, I think they nickname it. I mean, just look at that. So it's the spring drive. I think he's giving me the reference. No, spring drive. It's Grand Seiko Seasons Spring Drive Cherry Blossom. I feel like these were only made for the American domestic market. Let me know that. And getting back into the chat, I think Clive said something good. Rolex 2020, we don't care. You'll buy it anyway. Exactly. And it's a shame. I was watching Pete from Not So Obvious Watches. That is his handle, right? He had a Q&A. I'm going to actually feature him. I want to make a video about him and get his channel publicized because his videos are fantastic. It's so nice hearing an open perspective that's not driven by what everyone else is talking about. And he said, talking about the Rolex brand, it was so poignant. He put the video out today, I think. And he said something like, I don't want to be a part of Rolex's story. I want my own story, in a sense. And it feels like the marketing behind the brand has just hooked so many people into it that you think, don't you want to be a bit more diverse and dynamic with your choices? Love it. Anyway, getting into this cherry, there's been mention about how good the dial looks. US only, it's a shame. I feel like this was it. And Matthew's saying my grail, it's gorgeous. So the cherry dial, I think he sent in another shot, but I had to cut it because there were so many. This was more expressive of what it is. So it's this very pale pink cloudburst finish. Next to the snowflake that we know, it's the same watch essentially, just with a gorgeous cherry pink dial, and it looks beautiful. I mean, it looks like cotton wool. It's incredible how Grand Seiko does their dials. More than that, how they are inspired to do their dials. They go so deep into this hobby, into inspirations, that it makes even the designers kind of roll their eyes because it's just too much. Different case. Thank you for that, Boozer. So it's a different case as well, a little bit sharper in edges. It's nice. Next up, and now we go to green. I've never seen this piece before. Montblanc 1858 Geosphere limited edition. So I'd like to know more about this. It seems like it actually orientates itself with the time zones relative to what hemisphere you're in. I do not know the full extent. It has a compass bezel, which is something nice. And as it is green on green, it's a nice expression, nice color usage. Montblanc is doing some good stuff. There's a chronograph that's featured in next week's video. It looks fantastic. It's also an 1858, I think. Javier asking, what do you think about that GS crown? I think it's quite overwhelming. You know, the best part is about having an audience is that you can bring things to everyone's attention. You're so right in saying that as well. I miss a lot of these details because it's like you're trying to run a ship and get the presentation going, and you don't focus on all the accents. And there's been talk about me being more critical with watches, and maybe we can do the pros and cons of each watch we see. This crown sticks out badly if you look at it on the wrist next to just this presentation. But I mean, again, do you have to wind this watch? No. See, the designer looks at it and says, okay, so since this is an automatic watch that you wear every day, how often do you wind it? If it is your everyday piece, barely ever. So why does it need to be there? Why does it need to be so big? Very good point. Thank you for that, Javier. And keep your eye out for those details because they're everywhere. No watch is truly perfect. I continue with that statement. I've always said that as a part of the show. I think no watch is truly perfect. Doesn't mean they can't near perfection, but there's always something about a watch that is polarizing. And for that reason, I mean, again, the designer will say that nature is perfect because it just is in the way it is. And there's no way to criticize it because it's just natural and incredible that way. Man-made things, you know, man is not exactly perfect, and it's good to follow through with that. Anyway, the rest of the chats, what else am I seeing here? Andrea's saying, I'm sure it will be amazing to wind, though. Probably, yeah, buttery smooth for sure. Shaitan, you don't have to love GS as a watch enthusiast, but you can't dismiss them for the brand name. No, true. It's funny because everyone in the space, once you hear that word Seiko, you think, you know, all of a sudden the term price point comes to mind, and it's pretty funny. Anyway, Montblanc, I've never seen this watch before. I don't know its function, but 1815, you can see the cathedral hands are there. You can see the numerals. This looks very much like a CQ, a Glashütte CQ. Never seen a compass bezel in use before. And moving on, Alfredo, next, Oris Diver bronze. We've spoken about bronze at length. There's a few videos on the page about bronze. And I have my reservations about it as a material. James Arthur saying, I'm struggling to get into Grand Seiko in general, even though I have a few in my collection. You have more than a few. You can stop there. Their well-built case is amazing on some of the dial. It's what I don't understand about some brands. Oops, Magic Mouse not serving me well. What I don't understand about some brands is how they can be so attentive to certain details. Just like when it comes to finishing, when it comes to the dial and how the colors have been handled and all of those elements. But then they skimp on something as imperative as a clasp. You know, they decide a stamped clasp with just, you know, those holes for spring bar adjustments is good enough. And you think to yourself, why? And Seiko and Grand Seiko and some of those areas have really skimped on those details. Not saying that they're not well made. It's just the technology, what they have available to them. When you look at their case relative to what their clasps and everything else looks like, there's a discretion there. I don't get it. Same with other brands. I mean, looking at Oris, These pieces, in general, they are pretty well priced for what they are. So you can't necessarily expect full milled out materials and everything too. But yeah, it's funny. The engineer brain looks at it and goes, is it appropriate that they have attacked it this way? Could they have not have spent a bit more money in this area to make them better for more everyday use and more comfort and wearability? Oris bronze, you get to enjoy the bezel and all of those fixtures. Again, ladies and gents, I hope the audio is good because I'm so peed off. 15 minutes into the show, the Sennheiser, I plug it in, the microphone dies on me. It's shorted out or something daft. If Blue Shirt is in the chat, I'd love to know your thoughts on the best audio equipment because you, sir, are in the trade. I'd love to get your consultation around that. It would be fantastic. Okay, moving next. Thank you for this, Alfredo. Here we go. Love of my life. Speedmaster 57 reissue. I would happily get this watch if I could in a heartbeat. Junior, good to have you. We watch guy, the audio is fine. Thank you again. Wisconsin watch guy, I should say. GS needs to slim down the size. Some of their models don't need to be a lot, but some room to size down. But yeah, Wisconsin again, like when we're talking about size and presence and scale, it's this pedantic thing I have in my mind when we're talking about dial architecture and the use of space and all of those elements. Some brands do it better than others. It's one area that I think Omega struggles with in a lot of areas. When we look at their 42 Seamaster, tighten it up just a little bit. The 42 Speedmaster is fantastic. There's so much complexity on the dial. It looks fantastic. Okay, thank you. I'm hearing the audio is great. Thanks, James and David. Looking at these vintage pieces, this is what, 39 mils? No, 37.5 mils roughly. They just nailed the size here as well. The modern watches, are watches still competing for presence? Is it necessary? Blue Shirt recommending Sennheiser. I'm just almost on the brink of chucking mine in the bin. The whole mic system just shorted on me. Thank you for that, Blue Shirt. I might need to know the specific reference of Sennheiser to use in the future, but thank you. I don't know if that's just a jab or not, but yeah. Carrying on, I really enjoy this piece, the broad arrow. What I love so much about the Speedmaster, particularly the ones that are the early gens, is that they're almost prototypes. And you get to appreciate, yes, not everything about this watch works. It's not supposed to. It was the way of them just getting the watch out there. Does a Speedmaster need a broad arrow hand? No, it doesn't. It's not necessary. But I love prototype phases. I think there's something so interesting about looking at watches that aren't the perfect finished product. They try to be what they aren't exactly. I mean, this is supposed to be a professional instrument, yet it's polished all over the place. It's not easy to read at a glance, but who cares? It's what they were doing in the 50s. The sports watch was a new thing, a new trend, and that's what makes them so dynamic and interesting. And they make you question things too. It makes you think, wow, these guys really were smoking some heavy stuff back then, you know? And that's what makes this hobby just great. Beyond looking at aesthetics and everything, it's putting your mind into what these brands were doing back then. Electro Voice, DBX, oh, thank you. And something I'm going to have a look at all of those. Telling you this week I'm going to be researching more. And Boozer saying lovely braces. I can tell you, I've tried on, I've worn AP Royal Oaks, I've worn the standard Rolex bracelets, and the way that this forms your wrist, it has that same kind of texture when you run your finger down it, like it's a Royal Oak bracelet in a sense. It's very articulate too. It feels like a Jubilee. Anyway, yeah, chatting about this, I could chat about this watch for ages. Let's move on next. Tag Heuer Fragment. His hound is on the couch. I called this a fragment. I don't know if that's what it is. I saw fragment there and thought, okay, maybe. We're going to have a few Heuers on the show, I think. I don't know anything about this piece. Tag Heuer as a brand. It's funny to see how they've gone from what they were in the 70s and the 60s to being owned by the Tag name. Javier is saying, which do you prefer? The new Speedy 321, Speedy Chronomat, Metas 861. A Metas? You mean to say the automatic Speedmaster? If it was me, I would. If I had the money, I'd be picking up that new 321, just because of that purity. It is as bad as it is to say that you want a reissue of. I call it the ultimate reissue. I believe it to be, even though it's stupidly priced for what it is. What other brand goes so far to not only replicate their cases, their proportions, but then says, screw it, let's make a 321 movement again. And it's that extra element that I like. But then again, you can find 321 Seamasters from the 60s that are cheap as chips even today. If you can find them still, pick them up. I mean, they're like 35 mils, most of them, but hell, it's a great movement. And yeah, I would prefer the 321 just for the idea of it being the ultra reissue. But a Metas automatic, we can talk about, I don't know if we have many more Seamasters on the show, but I want to put a pricing bracket into perspective. Tag as a wannabe for connoisseurs. Brickley, and I'm afraid that the brand has gone all over the shop. There's some good ones coming up later on in the show, though. Thank you. And Alfredo, these have been your watches. I love the selection from AP Offshore, Breitling, vintage Breitling Navitimer, Grand Seiko Ceramic, Grand Seiko Cherry, Montblanc 1858, Oris 65 Diver. I love the size of this watch, by the way. Speedmaster 57 and the Heuer Fragments. It's great. I love the variety and the diversity. Going to move on next to Amin. We've been chatting for half an hour and we haven't even finished A. Good God. What are we going to do? So he just sent, Amin we know as a guy who sent in his gorgeous Moza. Was it a Pioneer? Was it an Endeavor? I can never get those names right. But it was this beautiful rose gold with a silver dial. And this time around, he sends in a classic Datejust, 36 mils. What else do you need? James saying he started my journey with Tag Heuer. Funny you said that, James. The watch that actually got me interested in buying a watch, the very first one, was the Jack Heuer Carrera. I think it was the 70th anniversary or the 65th. Something about what is not to like about Carreras. And Clive say, don't be stupid, just go for the Speedy 321 for $5,000. Clive, if I had the gall to rip a watch off a corpse's body, then I would. You did a good job there, so there's no denying. Yeah, what was I saying? We're talking about something I missed. Tag Heuer. First watch that ever caught my attention was a Panda dial, Jack Heuer, 75th anniversary Carrera, I think it was. It has this gorgeous red underside of the strap, like a Louboutin. It has a racing strap and everything else, deploying clasp. But yeah, it was an amazing watch. I never picked it up, but yeah. Dan occasionally likes things. Speedmaster's absolute perfection. You own one, I think you would know. Dan, you are based in the UK, right? We need to hang. Good to hang out and meet you. Yeah, I love them. 57s. Get me one of those Speedmasters. I would have it. No problem. So yeah, talking about the 36 Datejust, silver dial, batons. My ideal Datejust, Jubilee bracelet with a fluted bezel. It's a must, I think. It just works so well together. Saying that, though, there is the way that this bezel works, you get a lot more attraction to the bezel and the way it works in the light this way. If it had a Jubilee, it's a little bit more cluttered, but hell. Jubilee bracelets, fluted bezel. I'm more of a proponent for Romans on a Datejust. Don't know why, but gotta say, it's just, I think Blue Shirt said something good about it being the industry standard all around. My microphones. Shure SM57, SM58. Oof, Blue Shirt, thank you. I'm going to be checking back on this and and following up after the show. England must have thousands of graves and crypts. Clive, you're right. Problem is, most of those graves and crypts have early century gold rings. I don't know if you've heard that story, but someone actually found solid gold ring from the Robin Hood era, King Richard II or the Third, in what's the forest? Not Nottingham. Sherwood Forest. He actually found one of those original rings from back in the day, and he bought himself a house with the money that he got, selling it to a museum. Cambridge audio is the equivalent of an Isuzu car. You guys are great. I don't know a thing about audio. Thank you. King of Cludge. Great having you here, sir. Welcome. How am I doing on that Explorer, Bjornar? There's a gent. His name is Sam. I don't know if he's in the chat at the moment, but he is going to be lending me one to review for the channel in the next month. So I hope to bring a nice comparison between it and the Seamaster together. I think it'll make such a nice... when I think of the two watches together, 57 Seamaster is a watch to admire. The 39mm Explorer is something to wear. And there's going to be some good back and forth talking about its design and everything too. Jingly jangly, for sure. Got to ask Craig about his setup. Good idea. But I'm not someone who wants all the plugins and the jack ports and all of that. I just want a 35mm jack into the screen, done. I'm not technical that way. But yeah, Tony, great to have you. Thanks for that mention, Boozer. Next from Amin. our first micro brand for the show. No, Zelos Swordfish, it's called. And we've seen so many of these being featured lately. I don't know how, but I stumble on so many channels reviewing them and talking about them by accident. And it seems like a watch that everyone's jumping on because look at that dial. How can you not? A Fume dial. This man owns a Moza, so he knows his Fume. But I see James Khan saying, how do you rig up audio for a Segway? Absolutely no idea. That's pretty funny. I like that. Beautiful dial. I mean, a Fume dial. This looks like it's a full bronze case and everything else. But Zelos as a brand looks to be one that is really catching a lot of attention just because, and if you want to be unique in a space, be dynamic with your thoughts and your ideas, but keep it grounded. Don't go so far out of left field that no one gets what's going on. Keep it relative to what people want to see. Got to say, I love that balance on the dial. The way the hands work, easy to read and tell the time. Zelos as a brand is picking up. Do they use Miyota movements? I would like to know if they use ETAs or Miyotas, or if they use Swiss piece, talking about Salitas and the rest. Have I seen the new Christopher Ward compressor? Dan says, nope. I am definitely not. When it comes to looking at just general pieces that are released and on new introductions, I am the last person to ask. I find it a week later and say, hey, this is cool. Just earlier this week, I found that Ming made a dive watch. That's how far behind I am in the space. And James saying Zelos is a great brand. They have moved to macro brand status. And I actually wanted, there was something that came to mind earlier today, looking at a micro brand and saying how these are competing with the big names and what they're capable of doing at this point when it comes to finishing. The standards are getting so high in this industry that if you're not making good stuff, you're dead. You're dead in the water. NH35, ETA Salita. Oh, okay. Thank you for that, Ryan. If you're not making good stuff, if your tolerances aren't good, if your reviews aren't good, if you're not selling, your brand is dead. So for a company to go from, as James says, micro to macro, I think he actually invests in Zelos. It's pretty special to see a brand do that well. And the variety is insane. I mean, I've seen Meteor dials, I've seen titaniums, I've seen all sorts. Ceramics, they go, Mr. Clive, Mr. Miyagi movements, great. Wax on, wax off. Okay, going to carry on through. Thank you for these. I'm in. Next to Andreas. Now, Andreas, he is a young chap. I need to hit the whiskey again. 1969 Seiko Lord Matic. This is his first step into vintage. Good point to highlight there. And I do really like the presence. I like the scale and size. Pretty good condition. Vintage is a minefield for the uninitiated. And I love the point when it comes to buying vintage, buy the seller. It's the only way. Buy the dealer. You have to really know the dealer well and be sure that you know what you're doing, because you can get fisted pretty hard if you don't, as is the case with a lot of people. So Sabra's saying, is the enquire email where I send? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is in the description of this video, saying that you picked up a Tessuflex. Oof, congratulations. Tessuflex is the most underrated bracelet you will ever see and own, especially when you get the top quality. If it has a curve to it and it's not a flat stretch, it's actually got a curve around the inside of it. Oof, talk about comfort. Cedar saying the best way to keep up with new releases is to download the Watchville app. Everyone in the chat, thank you for the Cedar Canoe. Download the Watchville chat app. Get yourselves on there. And taking another hit from the whiskey. Don't know if it's wise, but let's do it. Coens, that's good. I'm missing all the cool chats going on. I struggle so much with keeping up with you guys on a good day. Okay, next up, I think, okay, this is also from Andreas. So this was his vintage pickup, first vintage watch he's ever gotten into. But for his 20th, he saved and saved. I love this photo. He sent in 2 photos, but this to me is just magnificent. Look at that lake. So he saved for a good long time, and he's picked up a Breitling Avenger, reference A17318, saved for his 20th. And he says this is the watch he wears everywhere. Now, I'm sure most of you know I'm not someone who's well-versed with the Breitling brand. Juan, thank you so much for the super chat. Dan saying thanks, congratulations for the Hodinkee mention. I tell you what, let's talk about that in a sec. Juan, thank you for the super chat. I can't wait to get to your Hamiltons in a moment when we get there. The Avenger, this looks like a fantastic watch. Breitling generally is very flashy with the way they do their pieces. You know, they're not subtle with a lot of their stuff. The vintage models, the 80s and the 90s variants, they were a lot more restrictive with their use of polishing and everything. But this looks fantastic. Such a good everyday wearing piece. I love the balance. What makes this watch interesting is the way that they have these accentuated quarters, easy to grip and use. But there's Andreas, he's in the chat. Fantastic, great to have you. Or is this a different? Now we've got two Andreases. Oh no. So we've got two Andreases back to back talking. So I'm guessing that the Andreas at the top is shot of, I'm not even going to try and pronounce that name, north of Sweden, and the Andreas underneath is the one with the vintage Seiko. Okay, thank you, gents. I should put your surnames into this just to speed up things. So Dan mentioning congratulations for the Hodinkee mention. What happened? Miles Fisher. Let's move to the next piece. Thank you for these guys. They look superb. The presentation's great. I love this photo of the Avenger. It's never been a watch that I've looked at, but I really enjoy it. I think they've done an excellent job here. Next up, we're looking at the good old Daytona 116519 LN. I'm guessing. This is me putting it together. Gnarly crown, as Watch and Praise says. I like that. So Hodinkee had their Hodinkee Radio, episode 101, I think. And Miles Fisher, he's an actor, he's an entrepreneur. And he just, at one stage, he just said, this big shout out to all the channels that I watch in the broader space. And he shouts out Bark and Jack from Australia, which I canned myself listening to. And then he says, IDguy, the South African. And then he goes on a tangent saying IDguy, talking about Breguet classiques. What did I do? It was about Breguet and the way they're finishing. I liken to French flintlock pistols from back in the day. It was an old video. The video got like 2,000 views, ladies and gents. It didn't even get seen. Okay. Meanwhile, he saw it, and it just goes to show you never know who's watching, and that's what makes this platform pretty special. You just don't know. It's amazing. Junior, thank you so much for the super chat and time and effort. Are you kidding me? This is fun. I love doing this. Being on the channel, being able to present what you want to show with everyone else, chatting to you all, it's great. It's the Rainbow Daytona, a gay toner. You could say it is. It's a pretty solid expression for pride, for sure. And Dan saying that's so cool. It was great. And the funniest thing, I don't use Instagram for DMs. If you send me a DM on Instagram, I won't even see it. There's like 50 of them there. I can't get to them. You know, it's hard enough just keeping on track with everything going on. Miles had actually sent me DMs, and he watches these live shows. So if you're here, Miles, send in your wrist shot, man. Let's connect. I can send you my number. We can chat. Love to hear about your collecting story and your background. Mr. C saying, loving the Daytona. What's the best way to contact me? I would say through email, probably the easiest, Dan. And yeah, I'd love to meet up. I'd love to see that 57 Speedmaster of yours. We could have a good like double wrist shot of the two. So yeah, this piece is an underrated watch in the line for sure. And considering the price this watch is offered at, yes, it's expensive, but you're dealing with white gold. Word on the street, Ellen DeGeneres watches this. Hell, she has taste. The steel variants are just, it's ridiculous. I mean, all the it's sad how the demand has gone up for them. When you look at this Rich Man Speedy, I like that, Brick Lane. I just clicked my knuckle. When you see this watch and the way it's been presented, it's so much more toned down for what it is. And you get that gorgeous silver dial. The contrast, you can use this as a chronograph way better than you can the steel variants, because you're dealing with a Panda dial here that's fully covered in black. So you can read the hands, you can read the time simply because there's contrast. What makes a chronograph good is that you can actually read the time and read the dial. Of course, the discrepancy is that when you have this in direct light, you probably lose a lot of those details. On the Oyster Flex, it's casual. And I guess that's the detractor for a lot of people. They don't want a watch that is not fully braceleted at this price. Speaking of which, it seems like the new Submariner might be released on an Oyster Flex, which is, that probably, imagine it is released at like 42 mils with a tapered down case like the Yachtmaster. Imagine they just put the Submariner in the Yachtmaster case with a rubber strap, no date, blue dial, bezel. I think people might get quite angry. But yeah, I really do enjoy this watch. I think it's really underrated for what it is. even though they're like, what, 20 grand? Stupidly priced, but still, for what it is, white gold. Does it take you back to my Parnas days, Chatan says. I really enjoyed those watches. And what's funny is that that other channels are actually picking up and using them. I get asked often why they aren't on the show, on the page anymore. I have unlisted most of those videos. It's because it just doesn't line up with what I'm doing now, what I'm looking at. It must be something quite peculiar when we're looking at like Phillips auction, and then suddenly you get a suggestion to look at a Oudemars watch that uses a Seiko VK64. It was a great way to begin the page and talk about design and try and get into that segment, but then realizing not much of a space for those pieces. Let's just get into the actual watches in the area. Watch and Pray saying 25K. Okay, thank you for that. So yeah, nice looking piece. I think the silver on silver is great. The contrast, black strap, black bezel, subdials, gorgeous. Okay, moving on next to Ashley. We're still on A, and it's been 45 minutes. I've been talking, it's full-on verbal diarrhea. I'm going to have to speed up. Ashley sends in a stunning watch. Stunning, stunning watch. Now, the way his email was worded to me, he sent this quite recently. DW says Rolex Passion Report is claiming to have the Rolex Leaks new Kermit. I did see something on Instagram. I actually sent a message to him saying, this is my guess, so there's going to be a blue sub. But if that's the case, if it's just a Kermit with, they've got to be more creative, man. People are getting sick and tired of the brand in general, talking about these predictions and everything else. I am too. But Panerai actually makes decent watches. They do, Sidikunu, for sure, they do. Quality and finishing is great. So yeah, talking about Omega Seamaster, he assumes it's a DeVille from the 70s. He said in the email he picked it up from a place of his work, and just look at it. So cool. It's become his daily driver, he tells me. Everything from the applied logo, you can actually see on the crystal, you've got the Omega there, symbol. It's just so complete and clean. And this was going to be the cover photo. It was so close. It was second to the first, the Zodiac. You can tell why. The presentation is there. You've got the contrast and everything. Also on a full, clasp. Let's get to the clasp. Also got the full clasp and everything too. And this looks yellow enough to be solid. I do not think this was plated. I feel like this is a solid gold piece in the line. But yeah, I really enjoy it. Look, just the presentation of this watch and of its time period, it feels very fitting for that era. Talking about yellow sub. You know, what's funny, I stumbled across a Doxa 300 clip the other day. And Thomas saying loves the lugs, reminds me of Breaker Classic. They do, sure do. You can pick up these watches for steals even now on eBay, Chrono24, have a good look. Talking about subs, I stumbled onto Doxa, and it looks like Doxa has not only made their watches thinner, but they're just expanding their color choices and their lines. Thoughts on owning 5 identical soft Pateks? I would sell 4 of them, or sell 3 of them, and keep 5196 and the 5110 if it was me. World Time and the standard Calatrava, perfect. And then with the money from the Pateks, probably get a sports Rolex, probably get a nice Omega, and that's 4. And then number 5, I don't know, just splurge, have fun, get something more basic. Just a basic hand wound watch. I don't know, a Timex or something for fun, whatever. Thank you for sending these in, Ashley. Ben up next, and he sends in ETAs, an actual ETA branded watch that we have not actually featured on the show before. Here we are saying it's my school watch I got from watchmaking school. Was that you? Ash? I called you Ashley. I hope. I hope that's you. I don't know. Names upon names. 5 identical Smiths. That's Boozer. That hits heavy. I only have 2 technically, but I love them. I mean, I wouldn't promote a brand if I'm not wearing these watches, and I wear them so much. I could go into a diatribe and talk about the brand for the next hour and just my general day-to-day wearing, but I won't. Good jab though. I like it, Boozer. What would be my sports car, classic car choice? I'm a humble guy, Dan. I try to be. And Javier, you're Ben. Okay, good. Thank you. I've thought about it, actually. I really have thought about it. My first car was a VW Beetle, 1968. And I love it. I love the pure simplicity. Maybe it's cliche, but I would get myself into, I would love to get a 356 Porsche. I would love to get a beautiful oval, a 57 or a 56. Was that a split window or was that an oval? A Beetle, gloss black with burgundy interior. I love that too. Just go in with the engine mods, you know, put a proper six cylinder boxer engine inside it. Nothing says rich hipster. Yeah, that's funny. Anyway, if you haven't been chatting about watches, I do love the presentation here. I think the numerals are nice. The logo is also special. He sent in another one, and this is even more cool. I mean, where do you see this? This is a full-on perpetual chrono by the looks of things. It's great. So, carrying on. Swear fealty to the new pontiff, Clive says. Yeah, sure will. I mean, I'm definitely not someone who follows pontiffs. I do enjoy listening to advice in general and perspectives, but I don't think there is a one true pontiff. Speaking of which, that's good. Oval VWs were 55 to 67. Curtis, are you sure about that? I don't think they were in the 60s. They were by 62 or so, they went to the standards. I feel sad for that 12, Techa. That's funny. And the 6 and the 9. That's abuse. But yeah, I'm really someone who would wear a basic. I'm a basic guy. I would wear a basic watch, driving a Beetle, even if I had all the money in the world. I think there's something so special about something that you can understand to the T, own and use. And when you break down, just take a wrench to it, refill the oil, change the plugs, change the points, and you're away. Clean the carburetor, job done. But then I'd also like to maybe electrify one as well, put a full electric chassis in it too. So yeah, talking about this piece, I love the way they've highlighted the red accents on, you know, that the extra hand on the outside for the date, all of the subdials. Friday, October the 6th, and then you've got your chronograph offset here, and that is nice, really nice. It's super complicated for what it is. I have a feeling that Ben actually worked at ETA, and he got these watches while he was there. Don't know the full extent of the story, but yeah. James saying, I've only ever purchased, we're talking about watches. Okay, never mind. Moving on. I don't know if this is the same Ben. I think it might be. Let's judge by the wrist. Yes, this might be the same. This is pretty special. Constellations. Constellations, white gold, ultra thin, automatic. Gotta love that bracelet. I think the finishing is phenomenal. We're almost approaching the first hour. 996 was too easy to drive. 996, it's a good car. It is a nice car. That is the 2000 generation. Hey, round about there. 1655, 911. Oof, James. I'm more of the 1016 and a 356 kind of guy, actually, at this point. I don't want to be someone that has any kind of. The 911s are nice. I don't know. I'm not mature enough to own a 911 yet. I don't think. I just love Beetles. There's something about the design of those cars that speak to me. The platform is just timeless. The way that the cars aren't designed to have front grills. You know, they were so far ahead that they didn't even need to worry about radiators and intakes. They just had an air cool opening at the back, and that's all you need. Same with Porsche. Something pretty special. Mistyped, 55 to 57. Thanks, Curtis. Yeah. Drive your old Mustang one day. For sure. I've never been in depending on the age, never been in one of the vintage cars. Constellation, great looking piece. I love the presentation, the bracelet, proper silver smithing looking watch, white gold. And it just looks like a watch of its time. I would say like 68-ish kind of era. Looks gorgeous. My first car was a 74 Capri. Oof. Lotus Exige. Mooseman, I can't fit in a Lotus. I've tried. I can't fit. The only Lotus I can fit in is a Lotus 7. Built one of those with a friend, and that was a good time. Another Constellation. This is also from Ben. I gotta say, Constellations with a little star. All these modern Lotuses, the Exige, the Elise, I can't fit in the cars. My legs, I've got super long legs, and they just don't work. Any small style car. I do love the stance. I love the way they perform. Excellent. I mean, how can you not? It's a mid-engine, and it's rear-wheel drive, and it's planted. Super hard suspension. But as far as driving goes, my legs can't even get underneath the steering wheel, and my head. Yeah. Anyway, catching up with you here. First car was a Ford Sierra Laser. Talk about a gem. So Javier said, I went to watchmaking school. Ben, are these all yours as well? I hope I'm getting this right. I struggle with you guys. And Alpine, that's a nice car. Talking about Alpine, the Renault Alpine from Thomas. Thomas, we're going to be having a look at your GMT just now. So you went to watchmaking school and those were the watches. Fantastic. Thank you for that, Heuer Förster. So another Constellation, and I think we have even this is a great shot. I mean, if we were talking about cover photos, this is a good example of one here too. In the greenery, you get to see how the tritium is aged. It's great. I gotta say, love vintage pieces and the way they're presented. Makes you think more about that time period when they were made, and what the inspirations were, and why did they do it this way? What was the thought? Gen 1 VC Overseas worthy. Yes, it's a great piece. It's so unique. I like the fact that it was this, again, transitional between the 222 and the Generation 2 and Generation 3. It sits in a different name, and I really enjoy your name there. That's subtle. Shaitan saying, I'm short with long arms, short legs. Italian cars right up my alley. And the repair costs too. Anyway, now we're jumping to Björnar. Now I want to spend some time on his collection. He is in the chat, I think. And talk about a varied collection. He only collects, by the looks of things, he only collects Prospex, he only collects Grand Seiko, I should say, and Breitling. Grand Seiko, Breitling, and there is also a Blancpain in the mix. These photos, get ready. But he didn't give me the references, so I took some wild guesses here, and is this a Sumo? I always get these wrong. So it's a Prospex. It's what you could call the green Hulk version of the line in the family. And look how they've done the green on the bezel and the green on the dial. The dial is hard to capture. It probably, yeah, most definitely is. I agree, Heuer. So it looks like you found that watch in the butch. That's good. So talking about the way the bezel's been done here, olive green, it feels so much more versatile as a color for everyday use. Because if you look at it quickly, it might not even look like green. It might look like it's just a black bezel. And it feels like something that would work much better with closing. There you are. Should have provided some specs. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Bjorn. The watches and the photography will make up for the specs. Not a fan of that green. Now, again, it's polarizing. Green as a color is very polarizing. It's way worse than colors like blue, red, I would say. Green is one of those in-betweens. You either love it or you hate it. I'm from South Africa, land of the green, the Springboks. Everything is green. I'm not a fan of green. It's just the way it is, and it's interesting. I do like that dynamic. Okay, moving on. So next piece in the selection. I love the variety here. It's just so good. Next up, we have a vintage Datejust, and look at those numerals. I can maybe tilt it vertically so we can enjoy it a bit more. Rolex Datejust with these stunning looking deco numerals. I think they look so good. And also the fluted bezel. I would imagine it's a 1601, but maybe not. I don't know. Neferion says he loves green watches. I can imagine you do. Chasing time, vintage watches. Always great having new people joining. Thank you for all of you who are a part of the show and who are joining in. The variety is going to keep getting better and better, especially in the early segment of this show. We've been running for almost a full hour at this point, and it's just going to improve. Engine turned, yeah, for sure it is. And we feel like there's a question of asking whether or not this should return, this style, if it should be something picked up, maybe reinterpreted by a brand. Tetley, good to have you here, sir. So Bjornar says it's a 16030 boiler gauge. Boiler gauge. And that's referring to the numerals and the inside rail track. I think it looks great. It's so nice seeing a Datejust with numerals. Why Rolex does not, if I wasn't in charge of Rolex, if I was in the creative department, I would say, let's get in and come up with an Oyster Perpetual with a full set of numerals around the dial. Let's start fresh. Let's look back at what made our original OPs so nice. Get back into it and try be a bit more dynamic. This is awesome. So next piece up. And now we start seeing watches that are really unique. So Blancpain 50 Fathoms chronograph and the bathyscaphe, I should say. The standard bathyscaphe with the way the indices have been done, the space just looks off. I should make a critique video all about it, looking at just the proportion. And yes, they try to address 70s elements with the syringe hands and everything, but the standard watch looks off with the way that the batons and numerals have been placed. Here, though, this looks so much more appropriate. You get to see that space being utilized for the chronograph. Correct me, this is full ceramic? No, maybe it is. PVD, I feel like it's full ceramic. But seeing it on the olive drab strap, black on black, it's really nice. It's a really nice wearing piece. I think it looks very charming. Nipples, yeah, it is. There's a nipple dial. And that's one element. I mean, we do critique. I have critiqued the watch in the past, but it's good to see a brand actually go the extra length with finding their inspirations rooted in that time period. They were, I mean, the Bathyscaphe was a watch brought out to be a cheaper variant of the 50 Fathoms. And the originals, like what the 6.2 MAS Seiko was based on, they had the very similar layout. You look at how the numerals have been arranged around the dial. These batons are just so clear-cut as late 60s, 70s era. And he says, full ceramic. Thank you for that, Bjornar. It looks good. Really good. Unique. That's what I like more. Okay, and then we jump into Breitlings. Now check these out. I really love this selection. I've never seen such a good selection of Breitlings in one space. You're going to have to help me here. Colt Sky Racer. Okay, glad it says that on the dial. So first Breitling, Colt Sky Racer. Again, I'll emphasize that he mainly connects Seikos, Grand Seikos, and Breitlings. Such an unusual pairing for a collection, but I find that very unique. And Bjornar has been watching the page for a while, and it's nice to see a full submission of watches for all of us to enjoy. Watches for fast chicks. It's great. Yes, I do love the presentation here. I think the numerals look nice. Also three-dimensional. Didn't even notice that. Check that out. Now, in the creative space, drop shadow. No, don't do drop shadow. Do not do it. Why? Because it immediately dates a watch. It immediately dates it. Not just a watch, any kind of text, any kind of typeface. With watches, you can get away with it in a sense because they do look three-dimensional generally when you have pushed up elements. But drop shadows in any kind of logo design, that's one of the rule of thumbs at least, to try and avoid it as much as possible. And drop shadow, again, I'll highlight, is that extra element in the back here. Unless I'm completely wrong, and these are in fact three-dimensional, I feel like these are too overemphasized. I think they are drop shadow. Anyway, there's so many other pieces. Let's carry on through. Next up. Now, I called this a chronomat, but I could be completely wrong here. This is another piece. There are a few problems with this watch that I think are quite apparent for those of us who like typefaces. So JBraff says, as Tim Mosso says, FF5015 is glam rocker. Bathyscaphe is a grunge rocker. 50 Fathoms. So the 50 Fathoms being the glam. Oh, so we're talking about the standard, the 44mm variant next to it. Okay. Grunge rocker. That's very good. Tim, I must say, his turn of phrase, second to none. No one can catch Tim when it comes to turning a phrase. I don't know how he does it. It's like he is a full-on dictionary as well as an encyclopedia. I don't want to mention what Curtis said about him because I thought it was hilarious, and it might be, if he is watching the show, could be a bit of a problem. But he's actually, Curtis, if he's still in the chat, he's going to be meeting Tim Mosso very soon to do a collection series. You know how they have to have a sit down with Watchbox? We're getting to Curtis just now in the chat and in the show, sorry. And I think Boozer hit it. The bezel font reminds me of 80s computers. The bezel font is, you have to ask, what was going through the minds there? What were they trying to do? And it's difficult to consider what they were trying to do. I do enjoy two-tone. I think two-tone looks great on a chronograph. Stunning. Chronomat 44. Big, bold, brutal, loud, proud. Breitling for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to see Tim go on with you. I'd love to chat to Tim. If we had a sit down like the infamous interview from a couple of months back, I would really enjoy that. And I think I definitely won't be talking about my class and my upbringing and whatever the hell that was about. Be talking about freaking watches, man. I mean, I get it. Anyway, next up, thank you for this, Bjornar. Definitely speaks Breitling of its time, 2000s, you know. Next up, oh geez, I just spoiled it. Breitling Navitimer. I really like this piece. This looks like similar to the Type 20 variants that we normally see most of the time. 2001 Space Odyssey. I love that, Eric. Curtis, yeah, if he's still, I hope he's still in the chat. Clive, that's a good point. I'm loving the chats tonight. You guys are great. So Type 20, this looks just like the Type 20 variant. And speaking of which, reissue chronographs. It's a video coming out next week. I'm not even halfway through the edit at this point. It's killing me. It's taken 3 days to edit so far. There are so many reissue chronographs, and to miss one is a sin. So I've done at least 30 watches in this video, but it's great. I've grouped them together into various points. So you'll see all the little elements. So Type 20, I mean, if you don't know the history, the Type 20 watch was practically inspired by German pieces of the time, like Hanhart and Guinand. I hope that's how you say it. I think Guinand's French, though. Oops. So Hanhart, especially, as a manufacturer. And all these Swiss companies basically took the aesthetics of the German pieces, called it the Type 20, incorporated it into Breitlings and Breguets and Longines and so on and so forth. Good looking watch, as Chasing Time said. Yeah, I agree. It really is nice. Breitling minus the Navitimer minus the Navitimer, Watch and Praise says. And I mean, what is not to like about a presentation like this? The balance, symmetry, easy to read. If they wanted to make one improvement, I would say make the hands white, just so you can break it up on the dial a bit easier. But I mean, it's all there. Reverse panda dial. You get to enjoy all the open numerals. The bezel actually rotates. Even though it doesn't have numerals on it, you do have a triangle at the top, so you can use it for its function. I think it's stunning. And the next shot, I think this is one of the heroes of the show. Now, Bjornar, looking at your name, I would probably imagine you're based in Norway somewhere. And seeing this kind of presentation and this view, the sun is probably like 1 a.m. there. The sun hasn't set. French Navy needed help synchronizing their surrenders. It's good. But yeah, again, look at how the way the dial has been done here. And you can appreciate the way the loom is. It is so legible. It's a real pilot's chronograph. Beautiful shot, as Nick says. Awesome. This is what we live for. This is what we enjoy, seeing how these pieces are presented in such a clear, superb way. Norway is correct. I assumed, since your name looks very Norwegian. I'm actually past Norwegian, if you think back to the Nordics invading Scotland. So technically, it's good. Carrying on, Bjornar, next up. Now we're jumping to Grand Seiko. We've had a look at the Breitlings. Now we're looking at his Grand Seikos. Starting with your clear-cut spring drive diver. I never get these references, so I won't even try. Crystal distortion looks good. Yeah, you're right. So this piece is loved by many. Many say it rivals that of the Submariner. Our friend Craig does generally talk about this watch as a rival for the Submariner. Accuracy-wise, I don't think you can deny that the spring drive is something pretty special. I do love the technology that goes into spring drive. I thought the Danes, thanks for chat on. Yes, the Danes invaded Scotland, most definitely. SPGA 231, thank you, Bjornar. Even if I owned Grand Seiko myself, I still wouldn't remember the reference. That's how bad I am with them. Because they don't seem to make much logical sense. You get the first part, the SPGA or the SPJ, whatever else. But yeah, difficult. So we just have the standard diver that we love, and then we jump to, bang, mic drop. I mean, you can end the show with this. That photograph, though. How did you even do this? Make Danes great again. I love it, Clive. Love it. How is that for a presentation shot? So this is a spring drive. I don't know if it's a high beat. No, it's not. It's a spring drive GMT. As you can tell by the dial, it's very helpful having it there. But I must say, the way the blue works in the light, I don't even know what the true color of this watch is, but it's an SPGE 215. It just rolls off the tongue. Thanks, Bjornar. Anyone who wants to look up the watch, check it out on Google. These are making a serious rise, actually. People are jumping on these because of just how well they're done. I think there's also a peacock variant we're going to be looking at. The shot is stunning. Probably taken in the car, I can assume, because you got the window there. Looks like a door handle. But hell, this is one of the best shots of the show. This was actually used in the as one of the community posts that I put out earlier the week. Okay, next up, another GMT. Oof. This being 9F quartz, because of the little star at the bottom. I remember that. And just the way they do their dials. I'm wondering why they go so elaborate with their dials. And then it hit me the other day. Maybe it's because they want to be sure that the fakers out there don't replicate them. And they generally go and elaborate very much with the way they do their dials. So yeah, 9F quartz GMT, one of the most accurate quartz movements ever. I think it is the most accurate. SBGN007. Thank you for that, Bjorno. And it's like accurate to within 5 seconds a year or something ridiculous like that. I don't know. It's incredible though. Next up, another spring drive. And then we have the snowflake. Great looking shot as well. We've seen the cherry already. Now seeing the spring drive as well, the spring drive snowflake. Great. That star means it's accurate to 5 seconds a year. Thank you for that, Bowser. So that's the case. So I can't believe I guessed that right. The whiskey must be working. Curtis again, thank you for the Bulliet bourbon. There he is in the chat. Fantastic. Special edition quartz plus 5 seconds. I mean, that's phenomenal, guys. No, I mean, you can't poo-poo that, really. I mean, for an automatic watch, +2, -2 is pretty exceptional. You can't get much further than that. But for a quartz watch to last that well over the course of a full year, if it was me, I'd be taking that seconds hand right off in the very beginning. Stupidly accurate for what it is. And again, the snowflake dial, you get to appreciate the texture and all of those details. Good points that some people have made that this reserve breaks up the dial a little bit too much for comfort. And people questioning if it's necessary there, why that cutout is so aggressive. That's one point I'd actually like to make. Why did it need to be so hard, the edge and the way it's been done here on the sides here? It could be a lot more organic in the way it transitions from the dial. Also think that the way that the finishing was done is a little bit peculiar next to this organic, very organic snowflake finish. And then you jump to the more industrial, just turned area. It's peculiar. It's the one aspect that I think divides opinion with this watch in general. Demetrius, thank you so much for the super chat. And all of you who are joining, thank you all. It's actually a Skyflake. Oh, geez, here we go. Skyflake SBGA407 on bracelet. Bracelet from a SBGE225. How do you know these numbers? Are you a mathematician, Bjorno? I just don't get it. You're a physicist or something, surely. Leave out the date here as well, Ryan. There was a beautiful one that I've heard about. They call it something like SBG01, no, not the 013. I don't know, but it's gorgeous. We'll see it one day. I think we have actually featured it a few times on the show. Next up, last shot from Bjorno, an El Primero. Out of the blue, we have an El Primero. And this is an open work. This is they call it the skeleton. I don't know. High frequency. So I would assume it has, the 10-second split as the chronograph hand works. I don't know the full specs on this. Maybe you can give us the reference again. You've been so diligent so far, Bjorno. But this watch is different compared to the others we've seen. There's not so much elegance and grace to this watch next to, the beautiful Navitimer we've seen earlier. The Chronomat is pretty brutish and ugly. Next to this is almost like your transitional sports watch, Chronomaster built grand date. Okay, thank you for that, Bjorno. But Sam says, amazing collection. I do really love these mini collections. It takes more time to do these presentations for sure, but we get more of an insight into what the owner likes. And in this case, Bjorno, all about Prospex, all about Grand Seiko and Breitling. I love it. Thank you for all of these, Bjorno. We got to carry on now. We're still on B, and it's been over an hour. 72 minutes we've been running. Now we're coming down to earth a bit with the Fortis Spacematic from Bruno. Fortis as a brand, similar to the names like Zin and others. They're doing a great job. I think it's also running an ETA-based movement. Sad to hear that ETA is being cut. That El Primero is a defy. Is it, Raymond? Thank you. Aluminium ceramicized. That I was about to say circumcised, but I thought maybe that wouldn't be good enough or appropriate on a channel like this. But hey, ceramicized case, really something else. How the hell did they ceramicize an aluminium case? Love it. So looking at this dial, it's pretty unique. Fortis, all of these brands tend to look at presentation. I don't know so much about how the numerals have been done here. They're a little bit too heavy for what they should be. But yeah, I think as far as watches goes, daily wearing pieces, you want something. I mean, we've got a day-date complication. You want something that flies under the radar, a la Smith's W10. What can I say? That's just the way we roll here. It's good to have a watch in a collection next to the big pieces that you have, your Rolexes, your Omegas, your fancy dress pieces. I think it's good to have something that you can just wear and beat around and not care about so much. Doesn't matter if you get a scratch or 10 on it. You know, it just makes for everyday wearing much easier. Okay, Fortis is very underrated, Chasing Time says. I agree. And Dan's saying, where can I get your email? In the description of this video, I think it's the second line down from Wrist Shot Week, episode 13, right underneath. There it is. Send through whatever you like, Dan. Love to meet up. So the Fortis competitor, the Zin 556, sure, I'm just thinking about that now. It looks exactly like it. I must say the 556 aesthetically speaks to me a bit more to this. But my taste, it differs from everyone else. Anyway, carrying on through, Bruno, thank you for sending this in. I've got a motor now because we are going to be looking at some individual pieces. Cedar Canoe. Now, Cedar Canoe did send in a video clip of a very old, I'm trying to remember, I think it was an Omega that he sent in, but it had this extremely slow beat rate, something like 5 beats per second, but it was a video clip. And I cannot show video clips on this because the download speed and everything else, upload speed, would just cause a serious lag on your end, and it wouldn't look good at all. So sadly, I have to stick to pictures. But this is a World War II era Marvin with a 2-tone dial, radium numerals. And the way radium ages, I mean, non-magnetic, geez, that's not a good state. Or does that mean that the watch can be magnetized or can't be? Can someone tell me about that, please? I really don't know. When it says non-magnetic, they mean anti-magnetic, therefore they mean it has a Faraday cage inside it or an iron cage. Please let me know. But I'm not even going to try. There's some crazy names that are going to be coming up during the show. So I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, but it's a Marvin with radium hands, radium dial, and the size, I can imagine it's probably like 33 mils from back in the day. It doesn't contain a magnet. Very non-magnetic, that's a statement. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it means, what the thinking is there. Again, back in the day, they didn't know what they were doing. They were just chucking things together and hoping that it worked. I would imagine this probably being a watch used general service probably means that it does have a cage inside that allows it for it to not be magnetized. No water, for sure. This thing can't even look at water wrong. Cedar Canoe, thank you for sending this in. Next up, Chris, Wisconsin watch guy, if you're still in the chat. Now, I think he said in his email to me, nice shoes, by the way. He said in his email that this was his first watch that he got getting into the hobby. Anyone knows Dettol besides me? Truth fears. Dettol, as in, I'm pretty sure it's a UK-based brand. Dettol being the disinfectant, right? Antibacterial. It's a big thing in South Africa. And it's amazing stuff, by the way. Talking about disinfectants and just general day-to-day pharmaceutical, great stuff. I'm pretty sure the Aussies would know it too. Truth fears, you great. So carrying on here. So Wisconsin watch guy. This was the first piece that got him into the hobby, I think. This was the first watch he picked up. And he bought it primarily because it was kind of hype related, I think. He said, not my first watch. Oh, that was the reverso. Okay, sorry for that, Wisconsin. But the Tintin, I think it's fantastic. Did a video all about reissue Speedmaster. Was it reissue? No, it was the best modern Speedmasters out there. And the Tintin made the list because it looks like a Speedmaster, but then it has this punch of color. And it just looks so good. It takes the concept of the racing dial and varies it up a little bit. And I think the presentation is just subtle enough that it's, I wouldn't say casual, but it's not in your face. It kind of is. I mean, let's be real. It doesn't look like a Schumacher dial, should I say. It's a little bit more low-key. And nowadays we know that this watch has virtually tripled in value because it was a limited edition, as is always the case. So taking a hit from this week's sponsor, Fisherman's Friend, simply the best. Cherry flavor, absolute dream. Carrying on through. Chris, thank you for sending this in. I watched Tintin in French class. It's good. And Chasing Time says I love it. It is a very nice looking watch, just because it has that added X factor that's not in your face, next to so many others that are just have completely diversified dials. This still looks like your Speedmaster Professional with that added touch. Not that you'd ever use the racing dial for its purpose, but hey, it looks good. Curtis, where are you, sir, in the chat? Curtis and I met up in Brighton, I'd say like 2.5 weeks ago, I think. And I can tell you, it was such an amazing experience meeting someone who is a fan of the channel. You know, I'm just a guy. I've always just wanted to be a guy talking about watches. But it was so special talking to someone. He's also a qualified industrial designer. He's been in aviation all his life, military pilot, commercial pilot. He was retiring and making his route back to the States, and he was able to stop by in London. So we got to hang out for a good few hours, had lunch, chatted about watches. These were the pieces that he brought along. He's in the chat there. Spent the entire Friday. It was so good. And what I love so much is that this community, the wholesome community out there, we get into this for the right reasons, and we enjoy collecting so many other things. Our perspectives on things change so much. And it was just so nice being able to chat about his impression when it comes to watches and this platform and what we do. So yeah, talking about Glycine, this is 42 mils, base 22. He loves this piece. He's wearing it on a Gekota NATO. And there's always been question about his paracord that he always tends to wear. This has flint on it. He is a Boy Scout at heart. Glycerin. Love it. And these are the other pieces that he's brought into London too. Now, sadly, he didn't bring his Sky Dweller or his 5-digit GMT. This was his return trip. He'd been in Sydney for a while and all the rest. But it was just so wholesome being able to chat about watches and his thoughts and the praise. I mean, you guys, the way you praise the channel and what goes on here, it's so unnecessary, really. But it's very inspiring in a way, just meeting one of you and being able to sit down and just chat about what makes us tick in the space. This Seiko, by the way, I've never worn an SKX before. This he modified completely, and it was like 300 grams. It was rock solid, but it was so good. Very basic collection. He has an Oris. His dream is a gondola, right? A Patek gondola with the Breguet numerals. He has a gorgeous two-tone Sky Dweller. But yeah, just basic pieces that everyday wearing watches. Since he was coming to London, he wanted to dress a bit more casually, wear casual watches. But Curtis, it was a pleasure chatting to you, and chastise me for not bringing my Sky Dweller. 40K appraised value. So yeah, but yeah, we had a good time. And if any of you are based on the South Coast and you'd like to meet up, just chat about the hobby. And I'm a guy, I drink beer, drink coffee, have lunch. We can have a good day out. Let me know. My email's in the description of this video. There's a few more of you who have been reaching out to me. Some are actually wanting to lend watches in for reviews, which is so kind of you. And yeah, man, it's all about the community at the end of the day. And that's adds that extra bit of depth to why we do this and what makes it such a fun hobby. And Curtis gives you all the references here about the gondola. Anyway, going to carry on through. Thank you for this, Curtis. Love your pieces. It was so great meeting you and just chatting. Speaking about that flashlight that you lost, don't worry, this is not out of context. He literally had a flashlight on his belt that he left at the place because we might have had too many beers. I phoned the place, as we were leaving, so the youngsters were getting in, and nothing. They were so ambivalent. They didn't even know what I was talking about. Yeah, carrying on through. Sounds like another YouTuber, Reed says. Anyway, I'm going to carry on through to Dan next. Curtis, thank you. This being the Seiko Prospex SJ03, and the nickname is the Safari, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger version, but the Safari Arnie. Guys, can't even get me started with nicknames and all the rest. Annie. You see, Eric Bell, you'd probably know better than me, but maybe that's a typo. So now we're jumping into a completely different realm, a solar Prospex variant. It's got a chronograph. It's rated to 200 meters. Eric Bell, for those of you who don't know, is a guy who loves his divers, and he knows, why is it called that again? Wisconsin watch guy. I'm pretty sure he wore a similar watch to this in Predator. I'm assuming. But yeah, Eric Bell, he is a religious diver. He is dived, divin with any piece you can think of. Everything from Aragons to Rolexes to Omegas. I think he also wear a Ploprof. I can't wait to get that right up done. Get to the chopper. Yeah, so it's good to see another Seiko. We're going to be seeing a few more during the show. But I think this is also a Gekota Bond-inspired NATO. Looks good. Again, you want a watch that you can just rock, not think about, not care about, just use for its intended purpose. And of course, these solar watches, they run forever. if this is a great apocalypse watch, for sure. Was this actually worn in Predator, or was that a guess? Do not know. Dan, thank you for sending this in. Then we're jumping to Daniel. Now, Daniel went on holiday recently, and he sent in some great photos. I mean, first, I think this is one of the first. We haven't seen any other polos recently. This is the first 42. There's actually like 3 of them on the show, funnily enough. There's not one Explorer 1, but there's 3 42 mil Polar Explorers. How's that? Just a gorgeous shot in the water. So he went on holiday to, now I'm not making this up, for those of you who aren't aware of Europe, Mount Titlis. And I don't know if it's tradition, but ex-girlfriend of mine went there once with a whole lot of her friends on holiday. And the idea is that you all go topless on Titlis. Let me know if that's the truth, if any of you live around that region. But yeah, Polar Explorer, where it should be, going up the mountain in the snow. And this was recent, eh? This was like a couple of weeks ago, I think. Shaitan giggles, yeah. I mean, it's pretty funny. But I just love it. 42 mil, some wrists can pull it off, some can't. This was one of the first modern Rolexes I ever tried on. Back in the day when you could go into a boutique, be taken into the back room and actually sit and look at Panerai Daytonas and everything. I had a great time one day. Cannot rock this watch. It's too big. 42 mils, it's a monster for my little girly wrist. But this does fit him very well. Love the shot too. I think he was trying to get a cover photo shot. Sadly, you got beaten by a Zodiac. The Rolex got beaten by a Zodiac. Another shot of the Polar. Now, this is probably a ski slope. Maybe, maybe not. Hard as ice, Fernand says. But the photography is great. It's good to see this watch in its environment. It's pretty special. And you can, whoops, we missed something there. When you see how the white dial works in contrast against the white background, you can see how easy it is to read and use. And it looks great. I mean, it's so practical for its purpose and application. For those of you who are avid skiers and who go out there, as much, my parents have skied multiple times in their life. I've never skied before, so I can't wait to do that when the world becomes, accessible again. But this is such a good watch for that intention. It just does it all. GMT hand, and just for the sake of emergency, I love this. I made a video a couple of weeks back. I'll maybe link it in the corner if I remember. But the video was all about how the GMT, the Explorer 2 has this almost safety net aspect to it, where you don't only have the date, but you have the GMT hand. And when you think about, imagine being caught up in a mountain. Imagine falling down a crevasse, being lost, and you're like, 50 meters down, no one knows where you are. The fact that you have a watch that can now tell you possibly 24-hour time, but also just the date complication, makes your understanding of how many days have elapsed so important. In a survival situation, you want to know how many days have gone by. You want to know whether it's 24-hour, whether it's day or night. And just that factor alone is something that people should consider a bit more in this situation. I think it's great. Indices pop in that light. They do, for sure. That's a good point, Perry. I see Russell joining us. Great to have you here, Russell. Loved your Langes. We're going to get to those at the end. We're still on D, and we've been running now for almost 90 minutes. Yeah, love it. So he also sent in a shot of his Tudor GMT in the snow. And yeah, GMT is a great looking piece, 42 mils as well. In my opinion, a bit more exciting than the new blue navy blue that's come out, because the complication is better for its practical purposes. I do enjoy look how dark this bezel looks. This doesn't look like blue at all, right? Absolutely love the Polar. Thomas, we all know that that's going to be the watch for you one day. I think it would work so well in your collection too, with a Milgauss and a Kermit. I love it. Yeah, variety is good. I think this is the only Tudor, this is the only Black Bay that we're going to be seeing, if I'm not wrong. That's amazing. Sometimes we get shows where we have like 15 of the same watch. Other times we get nothing. This occasion, we're only going to see one Black Bay, and it's this one. Okay, Daniel, thank you for sending these in. Next up, we get another Navitimer from Darren. And I think he said New York traffic. This being a Breitling Navitimer reference. This just rolls off the tongue again. From 1995, 813322. Okay, Good to know. This is more akin to the Navitimers that we all know. We've had a look at some great vintage-inspired ones earlier. Chasing Time says everyone needs a Polar White Explorer. Yeah, I agree. Wouldn't it be nice if they bring out a Polar Explorer 1? I would really consider it. What's amazing, that prediction video, I don't know if I said earlier, but I did that prediction video on a whim. I thought, what the hell, let's just do it. It's nice to put a few ideas, reverse analyze where Tudor is and what we could maybe link up to Rolex as a brand. And the thought of a Polar Dial Explorer 1 with black numerals around it, it's divisive. It's not really, it's a bit peculiar. But I had Omega lovers who don't follow Rolex say, we would love that watch. I would love that watch. Because it's just such a nice in-between. Black dial watches are everywhere. Why not diversify with a bit of contrast and color difference? Yeah, now that's a Navi, Watch and Pray says. Yeah, it is for sure. 1995, it's in good nick. And it doesn't look like it's a tritium dial. Maybe I'm wrong here. It doesn't look like this is faded very much. You would expect the plots to have gone a little bit of a softer brown at this point. But yeah, Navitimers, I think there are a few more, funnily enough. We're jumping to Demetrius next. Darren, thank you for sending this in. Also, love the flat presentation. We get to see it in a different angle. Everyone needs a Navitimer, damn. I really love the 765. I think it looks so good. I love reissues. Reissue watches are my thing. Now, Demetrius, we just had a look at a Fortis pilot-related piece. This is from Demetrius, who's based in Greece. I don't know if he said Cyprus or if he said Greece. He just picked up a new watch that we're going to look at, and it's a gem. Do not leave yet, because you're going to be seeing a gorgeous Zenith in a second. Everyone's favorite Zenith, the first El Primero. The El Primero, should we say. This is called Dekla watches. And he said in the email to me that they are linked to Stover and Larco and all of those. Greece. Thanks, Demetrius. They're linked to Stover and Larco in the sense that they are, I think that they were originally in a similar line with watches like Lange and those brands when it came to developing watches. I don't know if this is a micro brand or not, but you can't go wrong with a Type A dial. I'm sure this is an ETA movement as well. Simple. Also, I do love the size. I think this looks like it's a 40 mil. I do enjoy a pilot watch that is appropriately sized. We're not wearing these over jackets anymore, people. We want something a bit more casual on a day-to-day basis. Also, dig the strap. Demetrius sends in some great stuff. Your choice of mesh bracelets that we've seen in the past, the bomb. But I made sure to save all the photos that you sent in of this watch because it is one of the showstoppers. We've just hit 90 minutes, and I want to make a disclaimer to everyone who is possibly watching this show either on Sunday or Monday or Tuesday. YouTube has a brilliant way of not processing these shows fully until the like 3 days ahead of time because of them being short on staff. So if you are rewatching this show in the future, just know that like 3 days time, you'll be seeing the full show, and you hope you haven't missed it because the variety is just fantastic. But now we're getting to one of the real pieces that we know and love. And I'm so chuffed that Demetrius got this watch in its true form. So this is the A384 El Primero reissue. This is his birth year watch from 1969. What else do you need to say? Gay Frere bracelet. It's all you need. It's beautiful. As far as a Panda dial goes. Now, where are the discrepancies? Where could people start saying it's not good? Well, the presence. I mean, it's 37 mils. It's got a very peculiar case. The bracelet, it's a ladder bracelet. I mean, it doesn't look solid at all. But as far as knowing that you have the El Primero, and what I love the most, just breaking it up into shapes and forms, circular dial in this almost square tonneau style case. I think it is beautiful, gorgeous. I mean, everything, the typeface they nailed. In the reissue video, this is actually perfect. This was going to be another cover photo contender, but since this is the front hero of the cover photo for next week's show, I'm not featuring it. I didn't feature it as the live show cover. But the way that this, what I say in the reissue video is that what they've done here when it comes to looking at proportion and architecture and space, the reality is back in the day, a lot of brands just did it better. There was a lot more thought into what they would do, and some did it better than others, of course. But look at the way the subdials have been accentuated at the quarters. Smaller at the base, but the two large ones for the running seconds and the 30. You can't even see the date when you're not looking at it. It's out of the way. That divides opinion. A lot of people don't like the fact that it's offset there. But look at the way the minute marks have actually been included there. It's funny. It's such a quirky looking piece, and I think as far as it is, and I saved all the shots. So we got the bracelets, we get a good look at the side profile. You know, as far as panda dials go, I would love to pick up one of these. Clive saying, here's an idea. Why don't you pause now, take a break, and start back up in an hour? Clive, we're going to be going for a good 3.5. I feel like I feel pretty lively today, so that's good. It's a bonus. And even Russell saying, wow, so yeah. I mean, it is such a unique piece in the line, and I'm so happy that they've done this. There was talk about it a couple of years ago. Just 2 years ago, we were chatting about the thought of, wouldn't it be awesome if they brought out the original A384? And now the Rake magazine's brought out the A3818, the cover girl, using the same format as this. So much quirkiness. It's just 70s pureness, right? And I love the case. The bracelet is also, I've seen a review of this watch, and the bracelet is a bit jingly-jangly for what it is. It's I think the original factory that made these originals are still making them. That's the beauty of it all. So it is technically a true-to-form Gay Frere bracelet made in the original place. But it's solid. You can see the links are solid. Hollow end link. And it just makes you feel like you are wearing, boom, you're wearing a real classic El Primero, the first automatic movement next to the Heuer and the Seiko. I never get the Seiko reference right. But I agree about the date. Don't notice until you search for it. Yeah, and fully. I think for any collection, even your collection, and with your AP, with your root beer, this would sit so nicely in with it, don't you think? And that's what I think is pretty unique. These watches aren't by any means cheap, but they're so dynamic and unique in their category of panda dials when it comes to looking at the case size, the proportions, the presence, that it could fit into a $500,000 collection or, you know, a $10,000 collection. 6139. Thank you, Chaitown. The Seiko 6139, the Zenith El Primero, Seiko 6139, and the Heuer Caliber 11. Those three were, yeah, the watch deserves thick sideburns, Chaitown says. I love it. It's good. So yeah, it's a gem. It's a beautiful looking piece. I think it's one of those conversation starters for sure. The tan line must be terrible though. I'm just questioning. Don't ever wear the sun out, you know, sun tanning or sunbathing. Can you imagine the kind of look you would get after this? People would think you have an infection or something, but I love it. I think it just looks so good. Demetrius, thank you for sending this in. The A384 will never not get airtime because how can you not like this watch? Next up, we're jumping to our man, Eric Bell. I think he's in the chat. I saw him a second ago. And Eric Bell wears everything from Seikos to Rolexes to anything that's big. He wants 45 mils plus. And he's rocking a Seiko Turtle in the shot with the world leader in powerlifting apparel in the advanced designs. I'm not a power lifter, but it sounds like you're big on your deadlifts. How much can you deadlift, Eric? Let us know. Actually, everyone in the chat, let us know. I'll be a wuss and tell you that I can probably, on a good day, maybe deadlift 100 kilos if I was on form. Lol, tan line, yeah. It's good, right, Ant? And another thing, when you're talking about deadlifts, you need big wrists. I mean, you need some mass on those forearms to lift. I don't know whether you do an over-under with the way it's great. I used to love the gym back in the day, benching and dumbbells, and I'm like 15 kilos under the weight I should be. Tan line. 325. That's your deadlift, Eric. Unbelievable. So good. 75 is also decent chasing time. Deadlift is so if you don't have the form, don't even try it because you will. Talking about slipping discs and just inguinal hernias. I've had an inguinal hernia before. Still not fully correct, but I can tell you, not good. Avoid it as much as possible. 325, Thomas says. It's good, right? Eric. Eric's a big man. We know he's a big man. He lives in Loch Lomond. He is a full-on experienced diver. I think he was in the Navy, so he's been in reconnaissance and he's been diving all his life. Sumo deadlift. Love it, Eric. It's good. Okay, next up, we're jumping to vintage Rolex. Can you believe? We haven't seen that for a while, but we are going straight to a 5513 from Irwin. Now, he does admit that this is a safe queen. and serviced in Rolex. So he served with this Rolex London 15 years ago. And sadly, because of its price hike, the way it is at the moment, maybe someone could tell us in the chat, if you know your references, tell me what version of this is. Would we say this is probably an 80-ish variant because of the R? Don't know. Maybe someone can tell us in the chat. He's now chatting about deadlift 260, 225. Yeah, it's good. I mean, for me, I've always been about dumbbells and bench. My max dumbbell was 45 back in the day, the good old days. And bench press, max about 120-ish. that was my go-to, really. I've always been more of a tricep user, not bicep as much. But yeah, I love it. The gym is a great place to exercise the body and the mind. Beautiful looking piece, and minty, as Watch and Praise says. I think the presentation looks the business. Chasing Time says, love the 5513, 84 to 85. I assumed 83, but thank you for that. That's great to know. And it's just, the condition is superb. Dial's great. This hasn't been the dial. I don't think the dial or the hands has been serviced. It's hard to tell on this light. He did send another shot in, but it's sad to say that he now puts this in the safe and he wears it very casually, not very often. He does have a Zodiac that we're going to have a look at just now. But I do love seeing vintage pieces cross-pollinated in with everything else. 85 flat 4, Eric says. Okay. Flat 4 denoting the bezel insert here. The quirks when it comes to vintage Rolex, it just doesn't stop. And even someone who feels like he's kind of versed in this field, he will never understand. He, referring to himself, me, I will never understand how the R's look like dachshunds and Dobermans, how the flat 4s are linked to a certain time, how the feet first and meters first work. It's a minefield, ladies and gents. You better know your vintage watches when you go to buy them, because you can be fisted heavily. Carrying on through, thank you everyone for the Bart Simpson coronet. Is that a Bart Simpson? Hold on, I do know what a Bart Simpson. That looks like it. Watch and pray. Bart Simpson head. I mean, when it comes to talking about all these little details, you can be here all day, and I think it's pretty funny. So Owen, thank you for sending this in. Next up, now we started the show. Let me go back up. For all of you who are joining, I think I've probably timed this just right, that you might have missed the first hour because of YouTube's processing. Don't worry, it'll be fixed in a few days. The cover photo for the show was an Aerospace GMT, modern. Love it. The presentation, the photography is great. But now we've jumped down to, and I've just lost it here, to this piece. This is an original Zodiac Aerospace GMT from late 60s, he assumes. Late 60s, early 70s. And everything is still intact. What's amazing is that these watches, I mean, the vintage Zodiacs I've seen, these bezels, they seem to just work. I'm sure these were Bakelite even back then, because it was just cheaper. Love some naked loom. That's good. Excellent, Clive. And I've just missed out. Sorry about that. So we have a silver dial, the same arrangement that we've just seen. This looks like a bond clip bracelet of sorts. He sent in a few shots, but this was the clearer model, variant that we could see. I need to hit some water because this has been a hell of a talking session for yours truly. Clive saying he stepped away. Mine's starting over. No, don't worry. We still got lots. I mean, if I scroll down, yeah, we've got a lot of submissions still to go through. Don't worry. We've got everything. We've got Rolex. We've got lots of Seikos. We've got some Omegas, some Hamiltons, beautiful classic Hamiltons, Tudors. There's a Pelagos coming up. What else? Datejusts, Bomb and Mercier, Alpinists. There's a Pam. We actually have a gorgeous Pam later on too. Yeah, love it. And I'm just trying to catch up with you in the chat here. Sandhurst at the 83 mark. Sandhurst at the 83 mark. I don't know what you guys are struggling here. I'm struggling. Owen, thank you for sending these in. I love the presentation. 5513 Aerospace GMT. Great way to start. And then we jump to A, and I'm assuming 14060M because it's 4 lines and not 2. And this is from Gerard. And I mean, when it comes to neo vintage, I would imagine this watch is from like 2008, 2010-ish, kind of. Ron saying, just tuning in, could I start again? I'd love to, Ron. You can always, at this point, you can actually scroll all the way back and start the show. That's the bonus when you're watching it live. But, my voice is already going, can you believe? Got more Fisherman's Friends. So we're going to open them up. Simply the best. We've got a good, should I say, another hour and a half at least, an hour 45 to go. So I've got to keep the voice in check. Talking about a simple, basic piece. What I find hilarious, we're talking about these Rolex predictions that everyone's coming up with. Thanks for the comment, Francois, and I'm really going to butcher your name there, Eglantine and Francois. Thank you so much. I find it hilarious that many are assuming that this watch is going to be the template where we're going to see the reverse evolution of the latest variants of the Submariner coming out. I love the cherry. I love the cherry chasing time. It's great. Proud sponsor, Fisherman's Friend, simply the best. You look at the way the case has been done. I've actually made a design video around the Submariner, and I had a good look at the lugs and everything there, and there's something so graceful about this watch next to the modern variant with the super case. We're going to see some super cases just now. But the way these lugs taper, and another small detail, the way the lugs taper in relationship to how the crown guards taper. I think there's something so important about that kind of relationship there. Now that we have these big blocks on the wrist, it's funny. Many are talking about them not going the GMT route where they're just ever so slightly tapering the new models, but are going full hog. Who knows? Who knows? But as far as Rolexes go, can't go wrong with a no-date sub. The original, the last real hoorah of the vintage era until we got to the modern ceramics and everything else. So Gerard, thank you for this. Next, we're jumping to Graham with a Seiko Alpinist, and we have a few of these. I gotta say, look at that sleeve. I feel like we've featured you before. I recognize this sleeve. The Alpinist is one of the most peculiar watches in this category because you don't really understand what time period it's trying to link itself to. And I'm missing you all in the chat. They're talking about Dartmouth 88. We're talking about military school or something, I don't know, or later. I think Mark and Eric are chatting together. Cranwell, okay, good, because both you guys are ex-military gents. Plo Prof for life. It's a great piece. So this watch is so bizarre and peculiar. It looks to be one that is paying tribute to watches of the 30s and the 40s with the cathedral hands. It's got an inbuilt compressor-style compass. Gold and green is divisive enough. You know, what does it say? A cuff fetish. As Clive, for sure I do. It's difficult to sometimes read those PHs, Clive, I have to admit. I'm definitely not a dress shirt guy. So no, I just like the colors. I'm a color guy. I'm a color fetish person. So yeah, green and gold is unique. We're actually going to have a look at a huge variety of Alpinists in a moment. But as far as presentation goes, it's almost like this watch was perpetuated by the YouTube watch community in a way. You look at some of the channels like Long Island Watch. I think Long Island Watches, he seems to be someone who's very much pushing this piece out. And now, I mean, Seiko has retracted these originals. As you can see, there's no Prospex on the dial. They've now brought them out in Prospex, and they've upped the prices of them, which have really ticked off a lot of people in the space. It's a good use of using the word, right? Graham, thank you for sending this in. We're going to be having a good look at some more in a moment. Next up is Wendy. Now, Wendy, she sends in her emails normally saying at the beginning, Wendy, I am a woman. Because we have very few women viewers. I would say about 0.2% of the community who watch this channel are women viewers. And it's always nice. She sends in a baby G. Often enough, she sends in Tudor. I think she sent in a Black Bay once and a few other pieces. I think this is the only G-Shock we'll be seeing on the show, but I think it's a good-looking piece. It looks very correct to what the original G-Shock was about, right? Did other guys say he had huge fetishes? Oh, chasing time. If I had to sit down and talk through them all, or pretend woman later, no. This is a real woman. This is a Wendy. I am a woman. I love that. That's the way she words all the emails. I think this is pink, or it might be white. I can't tell you. I really don't know. Baby G, it's pretty nice. I don't know if she's in the chat, but we do have her here often. Maybe she is here. But she did mention that because her name's W, she's never featured at the beginning of the show, so why not put her surname in there at first, so it's good. I mean, we get her watch on show. So yes, there are a few ladies that watch the show, which is an absolute pleasure. And can you get strap code, Natalie? Can you get strap code bracelets in Johannesburg? Johannesburg. I have absolutely no idea, but it's great to know that we have some South African viewers. There are a few, actually, funnily enough. People often debate and ask, can you believe what's coming up next? Wendy, thank you for sending this in. I do really love the presentation here. Baby G, fits, smaller wrists, practical. And you got Wendy, you got Wednesday for Wendy. It's great, it just works, right? Next up, we got a G-Shock again. Now this comes in from Ildefonso. He sent in a great email. It was very well worded. A lot of your emails are war and peace, essentially. And I love reading them, but I can't attach an essay to the watches themselves. But this is a full metal square G-Shock. And my Spanish audience, I'm from the other side of the world, so I definitely don't speak Spanish very well. But by all means, someone can tell me what this means. I think it's a restaurant he was at. This looks like a safe. Oh, help me there. But full metal G-Shock, it's a watch that's become very, very popular. And Mick in Florida is saying it's pink. Great. The Bling Master sure is. And as far as G-Shocks go, I mean, as an everyday wearer, rubber straps, rubber everything, good. But then I'm not so much of a fan of polished on a watch like this. If this watch was fully brushed, similar to like F91Ws, I think some variants of Casios are brushed. Juan saying Cuban jeweler. Is that what it says here? That's amazing. So I'm guessing this is a humidor of sorts, maybe. I don't... yes, it's a watch brand. Horanchan, we're going to be seeing one of those in a second, actually. I've got lots of Spanish guys joining. It's fantastic. You guys are awesome. I need to brush up on my European accents and dialects. I can speak a bit of Dutch, and by extent, you kind of understand a bit of Flemish. You understand a bit of German. But yeah, by all means, thank you for sending this in, Ildefonso. I need to get back to your email and read it a bit more. But for all of you who send these gorgeous emails in with just amazing, very flattering emails too, that really make me blush. It's special. So thank you, Ildefonso. I love this presentation. And this watch, I would love to see it in brushed instead of from Havana, Philip. Thank you. Well, great. Next up. So thank you, Ildefonso. Next up, we're going to James with, oh, okay, cool. James sends in a nice varied selection of pieces in this line. So we start off with an 89 GMT, 116. I'm going to botch this. A 1661. It's not a 5-digit. Help me out here, guys. It's probably a 4-something digit reference. I don't know. Someone please let me know. But it's great. Eric Bell and Mark are chatting. You guys must email each other, because really there's lots of ex-military guys who all have this love for the hobby. And Mark was in the RAF. Eric Bell was in the Navy, probably around the same time too, which is incredible. You guys need to chat. Clive saying they are matadors gathering preparation for the other channel. Yeah. I've never seen a bullfight. I got a friend in Portugal who wants me to go and watch one, so I might oblige very soon. But I'm not a fan of public execution, really. It's not really my jam. But it is a spectacle, I guess. Maybe there's some great elements to bullfighting where they don't actually harm them. They avoid them, but they don't kill them in the end. Can someone please help me out with this reference, because I cannot for the life of me. There's a 1-4 and there's a 1-6. It's like a 1674 or something. I don't know. But it's two-tone on a rubber B strap, I would imagine. 1989, great condition. As an everyday wearer, you know what made these watches so good? When you look at this at a glance, it doesn't even look like it has gold on it. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, back in the day, Rolex wasn't about flash. It wasn't about bling. It's just there for its purpose. Black and gold, you can never go wrong when it comes to a combination. Eric Bell, paying attention. No, by all means, enjoy yourself, man. Chat away. This is what makes it so good. As a community, we can engage and chat, and that's the fun of it. Rubber strap, simple two-tone, and we will in a second see. Let's get to the watch on the bracelet. These are his two prides and joy. And now we get to have a good look at the difference between your earlier 1989 reference and... I feel like this is most definitely a 5-digit. I'm going to assume it was a 1661, no, not 13, 166, 16713. That's it, Orange Hand. Thank you. Now we can see just how the modern has attacked the vintage and where there could be areas of improvement with the super case and everything else. The Hulk is a nice watch. I've gone on record to say that I really don't appreciate the green bezel. I think they skimped and they should have gone a little bit darker with the green just because of how it plays in the light. But the dial, one of the best. This dial next to the Milgauss, the Z Blue Milgauss, two of the best the brand makes. My assumption is that when Rolex does their launch, when we think about where the world has been this year, industry, Rolex shutting their factories, seeing what Tudor has done in the past and how they work in tandem together, I have the strong feeling that we'll be seeing the Blue Z Blue dial, the blue bezel, stainless steel, tapered case, new movements. I mean, that'll win. Just thinking about how good a standard steel with a beautiful blue dial, blue bezel Submariner would look, how it would present in a watch collection. I'm not someone who's big on Submariners, but I would pick up a blue dial, blue bezel Submariner. It would be something, it's the perfect amount of lazy that I think a brand like Rolex would probably jump on. That's the assumption at least. But they do mention out of the blue and all of that. It's difficult. It's difficult to judge. You can't. There's no such thing as predictions in this space that are ever accurate. But looking at the way the dials were done back in the day and just seeing them side by side, you get to understand and appreciate just where the attention lies. Now, when I did this, I did a design breakdown video of the Submariner. Haven't published it yet. I'm not actually very happy with it. I think I'm going to go back and do a bit of a rework in a few areas. But one of the biggest benefits of the super case is, of course, the fact that when you send it in for servicing, you don't lose as much lug when it gets polished. I'm using your line, Clive. What line is that? Tell me. Nice synchronization. Oh, perfect. Didn't even notice. Russell, fantastic. He's got the hands all in line. That's great. Even to the second. Literally to the second. This is off by maybe point something of a second there, but oh, it's good. So yeah, talking about finishing and polishing and everything, you get a lot more material for the watch you're paying for. But geez, I actually want to bring this point up too. I'm looking at prices. I'm really interested in getting myself into a Rolex. Not that it's going to probably happen this year, but you look at a price like $7,000. Okay, you can buy next to the Explorer. Most of these Explorers that you now see, the standard 214, 270s fall into that zone, that price range. You can buy, on the Omega side, a two-tone diving chronograph, full coaxial automatic diving chronograph, Meta certified, two-tone, gold, steel, for the same amount of money. It's like Explorer, no date, just time, a few numerals on the dial, great clasp, next to an Omega with stupid complication, one of the best they make. And it's like, the prices of these watches are ridiculous. That's all you can say. And it's all due to demand, sadly. Sadly it is. And I feel like there's going to be a point now of us in the community where we're going to start looking at many other brands, expanding, looking at micro brands, for example, just because of the value you get for what you're paying. And then the other brands, looking at other Swiss makers. There's a lot of, I think there's going to be lots of ebbing and flowing as we slowly develop. Matthew's saying my southern accent. I'm going to get to that comment now. Hold on a sec. So James, thank you for sending this in. There's a few more. I love, oh geez, how is this for a photo? So this is a Russian blue and next to the Hulk Submariner. I love this. What a gorgeous shot. I hadn't actually seen it in HD. This is amazing, right? This is like National Geographic level of quality right here. Wow. And then you see the green of this is what makes these shows so good. Love the diversity and the variety here. Hulk, and now you get to see how the bezel works. So Matthew's saying, IDGuy, your southern accent was pretty darn good. I once heard an Australian girl try to do an American accent and it was just preposterous. You did quite well. Can say that as an American. I'm definitely not going to do it again. I'll have to get properly plastered to do another Southern American accent. But yeah, I have been on the stage in my life, I'll be honest. And the accents sometimes can come easier. I've done a lot of comedy and stand-up with in my past life, should I say. I love this combination. And the stand-up does require accents and everything. So I'm pretty good with a few of them. But thank you. That's really empowering. What about 1016s? As Egil, I'm going to botch your names again. Thank you. There aren't any 1016s on the show, sadly. And Rene is joining us. Thank you. Welcome, Rene. Many more of you here. I'm missing you all in the chat. Shaitan saying South African accent equals American attempting an English accent. It's difficult to describe the South African accent. I hope it's appealing. I hope you can understand it. That's the one element that I've always tried to bring across. But yeah, I wish I had a 1016 as mentioning in the chat, but I don't, sadly. Love this presentation. It's so good. Thank you for sending these in, James. I think there's some more from you. Or is this I think this is a different James. Maybe. Another Seiko, another Prospex. This being the reference. This is an LX, can you believe? Reference SNR045J1. I mean, what were they smoking with these numbers? Being a Seiko Prospex LX was one of the first videos that ever became popular on this channel. And I likened it to the Rolex Submariner and said, is this new Prospex a Submariner killer? Talking about the movement, you could make a good argument for spring drive. Is it spring drive? Yes. You could make a good argument for spring drive being a good competitor against what Rolex has always been using. But then it comes down to finishing and all of those elements. I'm losing my voice badly. Time to hit the water. The whiskey is still there, so I'm definitely going to hit that. And I see Showcase is joining us. Great to have you, sir. And all the rest of you here. I mean, it's fantastic. We had such a good show so far. David finally made the show. David Ruiz, I would imagine you're also from South Africa. Oh, you guys. And Mark's saying, I was out with friends who are South African tonight. Wicked sense of humor. Yeah, we can be rough, Mark. I can tell you, I'm very PG on this channel. We say it how it is most of the time. We're by no means conservative. I try my utmost to be as PG as possible on this page. Sometimes slips, but yeah, 72-hour power reserve, as Watch and Pray says. I like that. It's a nice element, even though it's pretty useless when you're wearing this every day. Another bonus is when you're wearing a watch that has a crown at the 4 o'clock position, offset, it means then that you can have a larger crown because you don't interact with it as much. You know, it's out of the way. But yeah, this is the second time we've had a look at a Prospex in olive. We saw one earlier at the beginning of the show. Atlanta, David. Maybe I completely botched that there. So maybe you have a Dutch background, possibly, maybe. G-rated for Stoya, for sure. You have to be, for the kids. Carrying on through. Next from James. I love this. I mean, I think he purposefully, this is great. Pelagos, living life in the sand. Pelagos is one of the most underrated watches in the Tudor family. I think they are fucking prawns, as Eric says. It's good. There's so many like sayings and statements that would come across that no one would even understand what's being said. But yeah, talking about what's that film, District 9? It's great. But yeah, talking about a Pelagos in the sand, we see how the bracelet's been used, or the strap's been used. This is a bit dicey. Seeing that sand getting into the bezel now, that is pretty dicey. I can imagine you're going to get some grains underneath there, but all in all, it's good to see a Pelagos being beaten. Beach volleyball, maybe, possibly, Demetrius says. What else is going on here? So mentioning that South Africa have good rugby players, so smooth humor, no, is nonsense. Yeah, I can tell you. I've been watching, I don't know if anyone else watches the Gallagher rugby in the UK or in any European spot, but Sail Sharks I've been enjoying today, and they're all South African players, and oh God, it's so nice seeing rugby again. I can't tell you enough. Do you ever say tsek? No, I don't. I don't. Generally, if you want to say it properly, you say tsak. For people who either know it or don't, it can, yeah, can put people off. Anyway, going to carry on through here with the rest of the pieces. We're going to be chatting about accents now for ages. Sand, scratches too, like fingernails on a blackboard. Oof, can tell you. But I mean, this watch is full titanium. It's fully brushed, so you don't have to worry about that. And it's the tool watch that Tudor should be looking into more. As a brand, they shouldn't be like, I don't understand why they're so fixated on black bays. The Pelagos is universally loved for what it is, for what it does, and has everything. Has a helium release valve, has a fantastic clasp and bracelets and all the rest. So you have to ask yourself, why can't they look into this DNA and say, okay, this was successful. We have an offset crown the other way around, for example. We have a helium valve. We've got all this technology in here. Why not extrapolate some of these elements and put them into a new diver from the line and develop it further? Stop with the black bays, Dear Artifact says. Great having you here, Dear Artifact. Absolute pleasure. They've got to expand some more. And we were so, I mean, Dear Artifact and I were so bleak that they didn't bring out a Ranger this year. That would have been the potential these companies have that they don't capitalize on. Pelagos is a winner, Thomas says. I agree. Left-hand drive on the left wrist, love it. And I mean, it's what it was intended for. And now everyone can experience what it's like wearing a watch on the right wrist. Having a crown digging into your hand is not great, people, especially when you use them a lot. Now, this was strange. The 58 is a great, I'm not saying stop it, no, by no means. I'm saying that they need to diversify away from the Black Bay line a bit more. They are so fixated on Black Bay everything. Black Bay Chrono, Black Bay Heritage this, that, Black Bay GMT, 58. The 58, size, presence, proportions, can't go wrong with it. But they've got, look at what they've made in the last 60 years as a brand. Tudor, the Advisor. Why not make an Advisor diver? A proper deep sea alarm, that kind of thing. Imagine having a helium release valve and all the bells and whistles, as well as a full-on alarm built into it too. Be diverse. That's the thing is, when you talk about creativity, you want to see more of it, but sadly, creativity doesn't always sell, as well as familiarity. Okay, next up, James, thank you. Jumping to Jim. Now, at first you think, this is a peculiar micro brand. The name is Haemmer, Haemmer, by Gevril. Now, Gevril, I'm assuming the way he worded it in the email, Gevril is the same brand that brought out the Tribeca that became so popular in the 90s. But this looks like a micro brand at this point. I have no idea where this watch comes from or where it's linked exactly. But again, good to see variety. And we're looking at sword hands here, funnily enough. I mean, I laughed at this. Left hook automatic. Please tell me what that means. In a second, we're going to see sword hands used on a very popular Omega very soon, the next one up. So let's see what else. And Angeline and Francois, again, I'm so sorry that I'm getting your names wrong. I'm probably butchering them every time. So with you on this, by today's standards, heritage watches sell more. Yeah, they do, for sure. Scottish watches. Scottish watches is joining us. Gents, absolute pleasure having you here. Welcome. Left hook, lost in translation. I really do not understand this piece whatsoever, but it feels like a micro brand, but this was made by Gevril, and I don't get it. I don't understand how that lines up. Why is there no Gevril on the dial then in that case, unless it's a different brand altogether? But speaking of sword hands, Jim, thanks for sending this in. We're looking at one of our favorites, and I think Joe just picked this up recently, 2254 Seamaster. I mean, love it. As far as professionals go, Renee, thank you so much for the super chat. I hope you've gotten out of Sydney. Was it Sydney? Was it Melbourne? I can't remember the story. But I hope you've been able to get a flight out and actually travel a bit more. You've been stuck there for a long, long time. Can we talk 5517? I don't think we have any on the show, sadly. But as far as Nautilus go, I've handled a 55. What's it? The 1-2. What is the? Are we talking mil subs? Gee, sorry. I'm thinking of bloody Nautiluses. 5517 mil sub is pretty special. This watch, though, what makes it unique? I think most of us know. 2254 rocks. Jay is in the chat. Great. We get to appreciate what the MOD spec was like back in the day. Speaking of which, I actually got the full contract and chit sent to me by Eddie, owner of Time Factors, and it's so good seeing how those briefs were set out back then. But these MOD Seamasters, this dial, if I was able to meet the CEO of Omega, sit down and chat to him, I would say, let's make a proper recreation of those MOD variants. Got the Lyre lugs, got everything there. The one element that I always critique, by the way, if you're still here, Jay Braff, look at Planet Ocean, 2254 Planet Ocean bezel, and your mouth will drop to the floor. It looks so good. There's been a few who've actually sent in their mods of that here before. With the Planet Ocean bezel, the numerals are much more tame, a lot less in your face. Sad to say, but I feel like these are like cartoonish. Their proportions are just too heavy for what it is. Have a look at the Planet Ocean bezel insert, but the dial, they've just nailed here. I mean, sword hands, full MOD layout that you'd like. Even the helium release valve is not, or crown, it's not in your way, it's not in your face. Same thing with the date window, black on black, it disappears. So I would love, if I had the opportunity, to go in and say, let's stop with these 300 professionals with the bond hands and everything, and bring out a proper edition of an MOD variant that is true to form, that is just, I mean, can you imagine the potential of that watch? Not just in the vintage. The best thing of all is that when you look at marketing and making something, you don't want to just appeal to the diehard enthusiast. There's also a great shot of the loom. Let's get in here. And can you believe, straight after Joe, we have John, who just has, he's just picked up another, he has one of these as well. So funny. Look at that loom. How can you not appreciate that loom? When you're marketing a watch to an audience, it's all well and good building it for someone like the enthusiast, but then thinking of how impressive this watch looks just in general, without even knowing the history behind the MOD and everything there, it's just, you can see it as a feasible direction for someone who's just getting into the hobby, who wants a dive watch that looks like a dive watch that could knock you out, right? I'm thinking the MOD variants, it would do such a good job. For all of you who are joining, again, I'm missing so many of you in the chat. It's an absolute pleasure having you here. Omega are known for reissues. Pretty sure the 2254 will come soon. I think they probably, I mean, it's a no-brainer. It really is so simple. I feel like they teetered with the idea with this No Time to Die. What do they call it? It's the professional, the titanium professional. I think they might have, they've used that as the inspiration there, but still didn't go hard enough. Joe sends in this, right? He's just picked up this piece, if I'm not wrong. And John, straight after, I'm telling you, this is not rigged. This is literally alphabetical. Joe to John. These guys don't know each other from Adam. They send in the same watch. And I'm looking at the strap on this piece, and it looks like this is from a Smith's W10. So this looks like it's from Time Factors. Sorry for the glitching. And again, for those of you who have just joined, my little gem that I've been rocking recently, Smith's W10, there's a video about it. I just put it out this week. Eddie at Time Factors is doing such a good job. One-man exercise running the show. And yeah, he's doing so good. Had a hectic time this week, but we won't get into the family issues there. But yeah, 2254, now we get to see it in some natural light. You can see just how dynamic and interesting this watch looks next to so many others. And if you guys would like to reach me in the chat, please tag me at IDGuy, because I'm missing so many of them. And yeah, as it is, there's everything, everyone's just chatting about everything. 45-degree angles, and God, it's getting full-on geometric. So Scottish Watch says Cookies and Cream Planet Ocean GMT. So are we talking the Cookies and Cream, meaning the black and white Planet Ocean, the white on the underside and black on top? It's a beautiful watch. It's one of my favorites actually in this new category. It's 43 mils, I think, right? It's another example that I think competes with this in the collecting space. I just think it's so unique and dynamic. I could talk about this watch for so long. You can't ever go wrong with sword hands. They had a winning formula here. Can you imagine if they just dig a little bit back into their roots, take the inspirations from the 57 divers from back in the day, incorporate that in with the MOD layout like this, have the 36912 layout here on the dial. There's so much potential. Omega would have a smash hit, that's what I'm saying. Next up, moving in, Andreas, great to have you here. Everyone else who's joining, welcome. And going to Juan next. Juan is generally always in the chat, and he always sends in vintage pieces, and he has an amazing highlight of watches. Not only does he collect, Patek 5196s, we've seen his Vacheron overseas in the past. We've seen, what else? All sorts of diversity. We've seen Breguet Classiques, everything too. But he loves collecting vintage Hamilton, vintage Bolivar. And every single show, if you look back in the archives, we've done 12 of these already, can you believe? We always feature him as a segment looking at vintage Hamiltons or whatever else he has on screen. Pocket watches, his collection is huge. And so this is a Hamilton Aquadate Super Compressor 600 from the 1960s. Look at the condition of this watch. And like I said in the beginning of the show, it's nice being able to look at them and trying to interpret what were they attempting to do here? What was the thought? It's just so clear that this watch is from the 60s. Compressor bezel inside, it's clear, it's symmetrical, Jubilee style braces. Raymond's saying, I've picked up the GMT 50th anniversary model of that, but does not have a helium release valve. Really, I didn't even know they had. Talking about limited editions, don't even get started with the limited editions with Omega, because I mean we'll be here all week. As it is, Speedmasters, good God. That video that I did, I think there were like over 20 Speedmasters in that one video. It's nuts. They need to cut back on those limited editions. They make some amazing stuff in that category, but you're not buying it for the prestige of it being a limited edition. You're buying it because you like the aesthetic. You like that they've approached it in a different way. No, the definitive Hamilton collector, Eric, fully agree. So gorgeous watch, compressor, and then we have another shot. I think. I mean, how is this possible? Can someone tell me? Has this been reloomed? How is it possible that this watch actually glows in the light now? This is a 60s era piece. Oh, stunning. Hamilton and Bolivar, Swan's #1 calling card. And we've got a few more. We've got also got some Omegas later on. Gorgeous from him as well. Moonshine, Seamaster Moonshine or Speedmaster Moonshine. That's the 321 with the platinum. Yeah, gorgeous. They do make some great stuff in their line. I mean, just look at the CK2998s. Or was it CK2988? With the ceramic bezel, the blue layout, or the black panda variant. They do some awesome stuff in that area too. Loving this watch though. I think the balance is there. It's great. It's a diving watch from years back. And there's a few more. And now we get to the really deep stuff. Now, again, Juan collects, he also collects Elgin too. Full yellow gold. Thank you for that. So Hamilton Piping Rock, it's called in quotations, from 1928. We've seen everything from this man. We've seen a Hamilton Reverso. Was it a Hamilton or was it a Bolivar? Literally a watch that used the same technology from JL or Le Coute back in the day. And essentially they had to pay a small commission every time the watch sold. Le Coute actually had to get a fee from a sale. It's amazing, the history behind these watches. UV light makes tritium glow. I can't believe it glows this well, orange hand. That's beautiful. I mean, this is an old piece. And you look at the way the dial is done here. We think Omega Constellation in a way. You know, the 80s, just the recent 80s Constellation, the outside bezel being the Romans, and these hands. I mean, that's what dates the watch. The railed minute track inside and the hands. But it's just so nice seeing such a varied selection, as is always the case. I mean, these shows are really special for that reason. Now, our man Juan loves his Hamilton electrics, and there he is in the chat. It's a pleasure, always a pleasure. Mick saying this is awesome. Been looking for all gold piping rock. You're kidding? Well, I mean, as it is, the variety is always on show. And Juan is in the chat if you want to catch up and reach out to him for any details. So this, what makes the Hamilton Electric unique? This is from 1957, by the way. This is called the Victor, quote unquote. Some more. Tonku joining us. Morning. Great having you here. Corner crown. I love that boozer. It looks so good. So what makes this piece unique is the electric movement. This was pre-quartz. And essentially it didn't have, I'm trying to get this right, it didn't have a mainspring. It used the battery as the mainspring, and it still had a full mechanical movement inside it. And lugs are asymmetrical. I know, that's just, he loves what made the 50s era watches so unique. We've actually spoken about this before, but 50s era really dug into 30s inspiration. So Art Deco was something that was resurging again. And you notice just how, like, the use of lines on the dial right here, this is really linked to that Deco period in a way. You have these horizontals and verticals. It doesn't make any sense nowadays, but that's what they were all about. Similar offset. I mean, we've looked at the Altair. We've looked at a whole load of elegant, as Eric says. Yeah, for sure. Electric precursor to quartz and Accutron. Yeah, I mean, it's great. The history. I think Juan actually sent me a full PDF summing up what made these watches unique, and it just goes on and on. Moving on, we've got some more here though. Now, we featured this watch last show 2 weeks ago. Omega Military Civilian 2179/5 from 1939. The story goes with these pieces that the same watch that we featured earlier, last show, is that the American market needed more watches because Hamilton, Elgin, all the big names were slammed. Should I say American market? I'm saying American military. They were slammed for production. They couldn't keep up. So whatever company actually reached, the American Army actually reached out to Omega and asked for them to send some watches for their men. And it so happens that this is a civilian model, a civilian watch that was sent and used as a military piece. This, I believe, as Juan might have mentioned, that this is actually a civilian watch in this situation. But a lot of these civilian watches were given to soldiers and they performed flawlessly. There weren't any modifications made to them. I just love that dial. Imagine this is what I don't understand. When I think of watch brands, I really hope one day this channel is seen by the big names like Omega and the rest, because look at that dial. You don't have to be an enthusiast to see that dial and say, this would work so well on a modern piece. It doesn't take a lot of effort, I tell you. This kind of arrangement on a Rolex dial, on an Omega dial, it doesn't need to be flashy. It doesn't need to be in your face. Just the arrangement. All numerals, no date. You can maybe lose the syringe hands, maybe go with something a bit more like a pencil set. But that's all you need, and you have a smash hit in the line. I don't get why brands don't look that deeper in, or if they don't question enough about what people want to see. But it's a beautiful piece. Everything about it. The dial is gorgeous. The way you can tell it's a watch of its time, that ruler style inlay around the minute track, that's pretty much a dead giveaway that it is of that time. But blue steel hand, and just as you would expect from that era. Juan never disappoints with these submissions. They are so, so unique. In Rolex's lineup, 10-year waiting list. Yeah, I agree. And I mentioned in the Speedmaster, in the reissue chronograph video that's coming out next week, that if a competitor to Omega brought out a reissue of its first chronograph, the Rolex being the competitor, can you imagine what the demand would be like? It's hilarious. I don't get it. There's so much variety out there from brands that people are, what's the better word? Not interested in. They're ignorant. I don't know what's the better word. Apathy. They're not interested in anything but the crown. There's so much more dynamism out there from different brands. So we're going to carry on through here too. This next is a 1960 Hamilton Phenomatic T-403 Shark. And this was made by an industrial designer back in the day. And I'm seeing lots of comments going on here. Reed saying, agree, a retro of this watch would be smash hit. It doesn't even need to be a reissue. It can just be inspired by, and they'll have a goal. They'll do such a good job. Lugs are stunning. This is what Juan loves to do, is to find watches with the most peculiar and unique lugs possible. So as you can tell, shark fin. We've looked at some amazing watches with offset, asymmetrical layouts. I mean, look how peculiar that dial is. What were they thinking then? And notice how the batons are set, but then you have these lines that run through it, and it's like a pole router in a sense. These pole router dividing lines that match up with the way the batons are arranged. Thomas, thank you. Great way to bring in a new day. Yeah, I agree. Oh, geez. Considering it's now 12:30 in the UK. Thanks for reminding me, Thomas. I need to drink some more. It's good. But I'm so glad you're enjoying it. I mean, the variety is still going to be here. We've got lots still to come. So yeah, and there's another shot here. I think, we have the movement. So this was the photo, I think Juan said, this is the photo of the movement of the watch, Phenomatic, 17 jewels. And I mean, can you believe the condition of these movements? That is actually a micro rotor. No, can't be. That looks so cool. There's so much in this vintage game when you start looking into these aspects. Another thing that I like to try and, speaking of pole router, thoughts. Was it designed by Gerald Genta first? I don't know the full story to it, but I believe it was one of his first designs back in the day. That's amazing that I've never seen a micro rotor here, as Miles says. But there's more. There is always more. Here's a close-up shot. The pole router is it's a Marmite watch. It's a Bovril watch. What's a better vanilla watch? It's not a watch that appeals to me much, honestly. And talking about Genta designs, I mean, that's a whole nother story. Talking about Giugiaro designs, that's another story. But I like its history. I like the design intent. I like the fact that it was built for a very specific purpose of being this traveler's watch. But it feels too generic, even still, as it is, which it's weird. It'd be nice to actually get one up. I'm sure Juan has a couple. Send them in for the next show, Juan, and we can have a good chat. But looking at these next to the Pole Router and the rest, these were brought out in a similar time, earlier maybe, a lot more dynamic. Didn't Universal Genève invent the micro rotor? Chaitan asks. Someone mentioned that in the chat. I really do not know. Hamilton bought Buren. You guys know your history better than me, I can tell you. So Juan, thank you for sending these in. We love your vintage pieces. Keep sending them in. Like to see some more modern. We never get tired of your Gen 3 overseas, so do that too. Rooted rotor. I've got to say, small micro rotor on this watch is pretty. I was thinking it was mechanical. Thought it was hand wound. Amazing. Next up, jumping to Seiko again. This time from Chrono Craze. Chrono Craze takes incredible photos, and what I try to do here is it's a Seiko 5. The reference is SBS A055. Another one that rolls off the tongue. But I loved seeing the variety here. So we have this. I feel like this is like the Universal Genève Uncle Seiko bracelet, I think they call it. Then we have it on leather, and then we have it on a NATO. And it was just so nice seeing the variety. Got a Japanese domestic market, so we have Japanese on the dial there, and olive on olive. It's always a win. Speaking of olive, we're going to be looking at a Panerai just now. And it looks gorgeous. Kanji date wheel, as Eric says, for sure. 4-hour show. I don't think so, Eric. Actually, we're getting close to the end, kind of, sort of. We're 2.5 hours in, but that doesn't mean that we can't jump back to other pieces and whatever else. The photography, as Thomas says, is great. It does look so good. Primarily the reason why we should look at these, just the appreciation of the photography and the lighting and all of those elements too. I think the layout is great. I also love the fact I saved all the shots in a similar angle so we can get to see just how much these watches can be strap monsters. Recessed crowns, they look weird. This being a Seiko 5, I think they had a few variances and deviations with the way they did their cases, but you can't go wrong with an olive dial watch. Anything that's olive wins me over. Next up, we're looking at our man, Marcello. He is a industrial design student. We're going to have a check in a second. Chrono Craze, thanks for sending this to me. All the rest of you who are in the chat, if you want to get my attention again, tag me. If you'd like to ask any more questions or whatever else. I feel like I'm just presenting at this point, and it's good, but I do enjoy the engagement too sometimes. So Marcello, another home run for Marcello. Send in your full collection next week, Marcello, because you need to have these watches discussed entirely. The other time he sent in a Newson Icopod, and I by no means like Icopod. I don't think the design is very good, but hell, the one he sent in looked stunning. And here we have another. Now this watch has caught my attention in the past, and you can see why. The color, the beautiful turquoise blue, Helios Seaforth, similar to Zelos that we had a look at earlier. This is an absolute gem. I think it's gorgeous. As an everyday, I think he said this is his everyday wearer. Simple things like that, I think, is so sharp. These watches were designed. They actually were looked at and considered a lot more. And I'm getting some questions sent in. Miles saying, have you seen the new Grand Seiko Spring Drive GMT in olive? No, I haven't. I really haven't. And Angeline, you're asking some great questions. And Francois, any Grand Seiko piece on your list would you share your thoughts on? Yes. The one I've always returned back to is the Peacock. I don't know what the reference is, but the Grand Seiko Peacock that is in huge demand. There's also a gorgeous version that has this cushion case. I can never get the reference right. But those two, the Peacock, I think the way the dial has been done, the gilt dial, that layout is beautiful. It's just so true to Grand Seiko in a sense when you look at the case and the finishing and all of those. Would I put an olive dial OP on my shortlist, Chaitan? I've been thinking about it, and possibly, maybe, probably not. I'm someone who's very neutral when it comes to colors, and I really dig white and black instead of colors in general. We can talk about that just now. It's a great question. But yeah, the Peacock for me is the one that always has made me return back to the watches. Grand Seiko, I don't put very high up on my list of watches. It's just, as far as brands go, I'm a simple guy. Give me Omega, give me Rolex, I'm happy. But if money was no object, I think also really love these GMTs that they're bringing out. That the one that we saw from Bjornar earlier, stunning. So getting back to the baby blue, yeah, it is special. Really nice looking watch, and it's great to see an industrial designer also consider what makes a good looking piece. I love the fact that he's focused on the point that the numerals are, or the batons are, covered in black, so easy to discern easy to wear, easy to use. It's all brushed everywhere. Fantastic. Yeah, so all of you who are joining again, I'm sorry that I'm missing you all here. Another great question. I think Andrea said, I wish you could actually get a Helios watch. They look great. They are stunning. I mean, just look at the way they've finished the crown here, for example. It's sharp. It's really well made. I was actually considering one at one stage. I saw a great preview, and it's one of those watches that you stop and you go, oh, wow. And then you go onto their website and you have a look, and then you see out of stock and all the rest, and so it goes. But yeah, as it is, Marcella, great taste as always. I hope you're still here. But as it is, your collection is fantastic. I need to have a look at a full set of what you have, and we can have a good look. Next up, Ploprof time to Mark. Ploprof on a rubber strap. I have been looking at this watch far too much lately, I'll admit. And it's so wrong because it's like 50 something mils from edge to the crown. It has a short lug length. I think the lug length is like 48, but I wear watches on my right wrist. So they need to do a right-hand drive Ploprof for me, and that would be good. And as Neferion says, he loves it. 55. Thanks, Eric, for that. I'm doing a write-up on this watch right now, actually. The history is amazing. I think they were so, like, this was the direct competitor next to the Rolex Sea Dweller. I love that story. But they specified that they didn't want to have helium release valves on the watch because they believed that their watch could go to the depth. Back in the so wrong yet so right. Neil says, I agree. It's disgusting. It's a mammoth. What would we call it? A Leviathan, right? It's this horrible, disgusting creature. In the write-up, I'm talking about this case doesn't feel like it was designed at all. It was engineered. It was just there to house the components. It doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But I mean, it's just such a funky watch for what it is. In the Kraken, another good example. Use it as a weapon. Yeah. So this piece competing with the Sea Dweller, which is much more elegant, let's be real. But then as a professional watch, you want this on top of your dive suit. You can use this no problem. And that's the real difference. You wear this next to a Sea Dweller on top of a dive suit, you can easily tell why this watch works so well as a professional instrument. And one aspect that I love the most makes Panerai look svelte. I love that, Shaitan. This is one element that I don't think many of you might have recognized, but in the design space, this is actually the one aspect that I really love about it so much. In the design space, having a color indicating a function is a very special thing to do, okay? We zoom in on the orange parts. You notice the relationship here. Orange pusher for the ratchet, orange hand, orange pip, orange Seamaster. Every element that is assigned to its diving purpose is in orange. And that is so bloody cool. That's what sings to me the most about this thing. Compared to so many other brands that miss that opportunity, think about it. In order to operate the bezel, you need to operate the pusher, orange. In order to line up the orange highlight with the orange hand, perfect. Seamaster for depth, it's practical, it's functional. Yeah, I love it. It's so peculiar and it's disgusting, but it's so great. I wish I could wear it, but that crown going into my hand, wouldn't be able to. Yeah, orange Julius, that's funny. Yeah, so Ploprof and rubber. There's another shot here from Mark. And he is a diver, as you can probably see, which is fantastic. And it's in the right place, in the right hands. And yeah, man, I mean, Omega does some good stuff, quirky stuff, unique. It's a brand that's not afraid of going the extra mile when it comes to like, bringing out pieces, thinking about how they could revitalize. We've actually featured a titanium variant before with that gorgeous gray dial on the full shark mesh. I think it's where it belongs. Yeah, it's a gorgeous watch. I mean, what can you say? So Raymond's saying at the first crown stop, the hour hand works independently. I believe so. And you actually have to use it backwards to wind it because of the setting, because of the way this has been arranged here. You to pull out the crown, you have to unwind it. It's such a quirky watch, but I think it's great. Also, the offset date. Did you even notice it had a date? Nope. It's got a helium release valve underneath here that you wouldn't even see. It's just, it doesn't make sense. The designer in me says it's ugly as sin, but then there are so many aspects to it that says, you know, it has more to it than just its presence, its appearance. More like a wrist instrument, like the original Fliegers. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it does if I was a diver, proper professional diver, and I was wearing watches on my left wrist, I would probably be wearing this on a daily basis, just because and the best part of all is that it's such a good conversation starter. I'm watching a few reviews of this watch. People say often that they get pulled aside and people are asking, what is that thing? It looks so cool. Yeah, it's wonderful, as Mark says, unique. Eric Bell's asking with the date, 2016, comes with rubber and mesh. Maybe it was. I mean, this piece looks like it's been pretty well used over its life. It's a monster. Great though. Mark, thank you for sending this in. And I don't know if this is the same mark. Yes, it is. It's the same mark. Can tell by the wrist hair. We have our first 5-digit reference polar. Don't worry, we're going to see some more 6 digits in a moment, but on a Jubilee bracelet. That is nice. If I own this watch, this is exactly what I would do, because it blends. I mean, geez, we can talk about that in a moment. James, thank you so much for the super chat. Really, oh God, all of you here, I appreciate it. James, you've been here for so long already. Please email me your phone number. We need to catch up again. It's been like 2 weeks. It'd be great to chat. But thanks for the stream. Tiredness is hitting me. Hit the hay for sure. I hope everyone's drinking something good. True professionalism, I don't know so much, James. It's more like fun. It's more like a presentation, and it's fun, and that's what makes it a joy. Absolutely love the Plo Prof. Still wear it to this day, James. It's a great watch. And all of you who are still part of the show, it's an absolute pleasure having you here. There's over 300 of you. We've actually maxed out the greatest number of participants, viewers on the show today, which is very humbling. And I can't thank you all enough for being here just to witness what's going on and being a part of the chat and the community and everything. What a lovely Seiko mod. So yeah, talking about the 5-digit, what's it, a 16570. I love the X factor of a Jubilee. Does it make sense with a professional watch? No, not really. It makes kind of more sense with the GMT, since it's the dressier variant of the more heavy duty instruments built for traveling across in the sky and everything. But as far as a casual everyday wearer, I mean, most of you know who's tried Jubilee bracelets, you know how comfortable they are. And it just adds a little bit of dress to the dynamic and makes it even less recognizable as a watch in the line, which I really like. If I had this watch, this is what I would do. And you know, it's one of the pieces next to the Seamaster that I have. It's one of the pieces that I think would work so nicely in tandem. But date complications, I've started to really, it irks me. Date complications really bug me because my eyes always are drawn to the dates, and that's it. It's like, we could talk about that for sure. Joe S says, you and the Timeless Watch channel are the best. I love Timeless Watch channel. I love him. He is such a, his comedy is fantastic. It's dry. Love to meet him. I'd actually love to, he stays in Venice, right? Love to go out and visit him and just chat. The community is amazing. I must say that the way the community interacts, not just the audience, but the presenters that we all have different characters. Now we've got Irishmen, we've got Englishmen, we've got Scotsmen, we've got Australians, we've got South Africans, it's great. And I think that's what makes our perspectives from different sides of the world also, we have lots of Americans too, I should say. Our perspectives from different sides of the world all factor in and make this a bit more unique. Angeline and Francois, thank you for the super chat. I really, really appreciate it. And everyone, 73 Math, you missed an amazing El Primero a second ago. You have to jump back like maybe an hour. Reed says, do you think the 16570 Polar could serve well as a one watch? Technically, there's no such thing as a one watch collection. Collection generally denotes two, if I'm not wrong. But as a one watch, speaking personally, I would not have this as a one watch. It wouldn't work for me. But for someone who, I highly recommend you look at that Explorer video that I put out a couple of weeks ago. It's titled something like "Which Explorer is Best for You," and it spends like 10 minutes looking through them both and judging the pros and cons. What this watch has is more practicality to it. I love the fact that it's an outlier. It's not one that people have assigned to Rolex. I always think of this watch being on the wrist of a tennis player in the 90s and the 80s. For some reason, I feel like this is the watch I would be playing if I was a professional tennis sports star back then. But you have a date complication, which is practical. You have a GMT complication, which is also, the fixed bezel is a nice detail because there's less stuff to faff around with, I guess. It's for someone who wants to be a bit simpler. I mean, I've tried to teach my dad how to use a GMT. He throws it against the wall. He doesn't know what's going on. So it floats whoever floats your boat, you know. Mr. C, $1. Thank you. You're coming up in a second, Mr. C. Can you have a one-watch confection? No, I think that also denotes as two, doesn't it? I'm not, by no means, I've failed English. So I'm by no means an English major. You might need to help me there. But yeah, it's a gorgeous looking piece. I think that the presentation on the Jubilee, such a great everyday wearer. Good question though. And there was a mention again about Timeless Watch Channel that I lost there. I like the times, and I love Lenny. Lenny is good. His alter ego. I need to get some advice from him about audio equipment, I think, too, because I suck. One thing I can't do is audio. Can never. Okay, carrying on. Mark, thank you for sending these pieces in. I love your Plo Prof. Can't go wrong with it. Matthew from New Zealand. Now, Matthew is one of the most devoted viewers of this channel. There's a few of us in the chat who generally always watches the show. And yeah, Matthew, based in New Zealand, I mean, he's up at like 4 in the morning watching these shows, which I just don't get, but to each their own. It's fantastic. And he sends in a selection of alpinists. I feel like these are all his. I don't know so much, but we get to see, and we had a look at this earlier. We saw Reed, it wasn't Reed. Reed also has an alpinist. We saw an alpinist earlier on a Jubilee, this variant, okay? Next to it, you notice there's no Prospex here. Next to it, we see the latest variant with the Prospex and the Polar variant with the Prospex. Now, I did a video all about the Prospex, talking about its evolution from 1960, whatever, until current. It was a long one. So have a look, IDGuy, did I say Prospex, on the Alpinist, IDGuy Alpinist, and you'll see a full like documentary that covers their development. Lots of in-between variants that you don't hear about often. But I think they've done such a good job with this black variant, personally, compared to the green. Green was always the go-to. And then in the 90s, you also had white variants and stuff. But this is almost like a revitalization of a few elements that made this watch quite unique back in the day. Not so much of a fan of the Cyclops, that breaks up things. But regarding the way these watches present themselves now, look at them both. And as we do that, we get to the chat. So Astro Fantastica says, happy to help with any audio questions, problems. You can tell by the photos coming up, I'm rather into it. Oh, the headset that you were looking at. I didn't write down the name of the headset. I'm sorry. But yes, absolutely. The one thing I can't do, I said in the beginning of the show, Sennheiser headset must have fused or something, must have shorted, but the full mic, everything's botched. I can still use the headset, but the microphone doesn't work. Bose is the one zone that seems to be working all the time for me. I'm going to look at other names now. I'm going to be looking at other brands. Really feel quite burnt that the Sennheiser died on me after like a week, which sucks. Okay, catching up with all of you here in the chat. Again, tag me if you want to get my attention. James says, not sure. I want to go to Venice still. I have a few friends who've been traveling through recently, actually, and they seem like everything's fine. Thank you, James. And you left a super chat. I saw it earlier. It's an absolute pleasure having you here. And it really is, all of you who do join in and are a part of these shows, I tell you, it's a pleasure. The interaction is always what makes this a joy. But being able to present the watches that you send in and the variety that you have makes it all the better. Thank you, James, for being here with us. And there was a mention here, I see Raymond saying Black Dial is known as the Shark's Tooth. Ah, okay, so that's like their latest name. Bose, buy other sound equipment, Shaitan. Bose is amazing for its variety, for its usability, durability. I haven't had any problems with it, but I'm by no means an audiophile. One more hour, Clive says. What are we getting up to now? We almost about hit the 3-hour mark, right? Okay. Having a look at these two alpinists, can you see the discrepancy between these two? The one on the left, it looks to be one inspired by like 40s and 30s motifs with the cathedral hands and the numerals, the way they're placed. But this dial next to it looks so much more complete. It looks a bit more transitional in a way. They've done some really good stuff, like the numerals on the dial. You see how the numerals have been set at the 5, the 10, the 20, the 30. It looks a bit more like a navigational instrument next to this peculiar arrangement. Much more old-fashioned. Jacinta, welcome. Thanks for joining us, Jacinta. Great to have you here. And yeah, the rest of you who logged in, there's probably more of you joining as well. Nice looking pieces. And seeing the Polar variant next to it, Does it look better than the green? Don't know. It's a peculiar watch, but seeing that Matthew loves them so much, having 3 of them, it's pretty something. I've never known someone to have 3 of the same watch, but you can't call them all the same because they're different, and it's a pleasure. Yeah. So Matthew, thank you. If you're still in the chat, would be great to let you know if you're here. Indexes on the right one look like the first Milgauss reference. You're talking about the middle. What's that reference called? The 6541 or something. I love it. The turning bezel variant. I love it. Yeah, great looking pieces. Going to carry on through. Next to Max. Max sent this in. No description whatsoever. Just Bomb and Mercier. Didn't even give me the name of the watch. And I mean, this is a watch of its time. I called it Cuff. I don't know a thing about it, but it looks like one of its time. I would imagine like the 60s and 70s kind of era. It's just so peculiar, right? I love it. I would imagine it's mechanical, probably a hand wound. Bomb and Mercier was a big name back in the day. It was really important. Ladies' watch, as Truthfear says, I do not know. It was a watch of its time, for sure. You can see gold on gold. The dial is what I do like. You notice how the dial relates to the bracelet. I didn't even notice that. The stippling inside here, that's cool. That is really cool. I don't even know if this is leather or if this is metal, but I think it's gorgeous. As far as presentation goes, the color's superb. It's just so out of left field. It looks like an ellipse. Turn it vertical and it's ellipse. Looks great. The watch weirds me out. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a watch of its time. Don't know if it's as transitional now as other pieces we've seen before. Next up, thank you for this, Max. I feel like we're at Mr. C. Let's have a look at Mr. C's collection because he sent it in. I think I might have asked him for it at one stage. Now, Mr. C, we might know, he doesn't have the biggest wrists like a lot of us. And he doesn't let that phase him in this area, this zone, because you can see that the watches that he collects are primarily, the largest that he has is the 41 Heritage Tudor. Let's just run through them. So we have a Portofino here. Great looking size. I want to discuss this in a moment. Small seconds reverso, Datejust, fully blinged out. I love it. And then we have Datejust 36 on a President bracelet. That's something we can look at in a moment. Datejust red. We've had a look at this earlier in the show. And last 2 weeks ago we had a look at it. Orange on orange. I think this is one of the most fascinating OPs as far as layout goes. 36 mil, I think this is the mid-size Seamaster, and the 41 Black Bay. So instead of being someone who bends to the norms of picking up watches that are size relative, you know, what people want to see, I do enjoy the idea that all of these watches are relatively the same size that fit his wrist. And yeah, as far as presence goes and everything else, let's get straight to start with the Datejust on a President bracelet. Now, Mr. C loves his music equipment as well. I don't know if he's in the chat. He was here earlier, but yeah, pretty special. What's like that? This guy needs more Rolex. He does have a few. I think there's some more shots of the Datejust. Let's have a look. Yeah, here's a better shot. 36 mil Datejust. We've had a look at this exact watch earlier on, and I think it's pretty cool seeing it on a President bracelet. I don't know how he got the size of these correct or not. The fitting looks a little bit loose for what it is. I had this watch, 73 Math says, yeah, I mean, it's a nice looking piece. But then we carry on through. I really want to stop at the Portofino. And speaking of guitars, we can have a look at this in a sec. This is quite unique. IWC, look at that dial. So this is a 34 millimeter, okay? Reference 3561. And have you ever seen such a nice dial on, I must say, IWC, nowadays, with most of their pieces, they tend to oversize a lot of their watches. You think of watches like the Portuguesa and most of their pilot pieces. I really like the fact that this variant is scaled down quite appropriately for what it is. And 34 mils, I mean, it's practical, it's usable. It looks like a watch from its time. You know what made this watch even sing even more if they had Schaffhausen written in cursive. But I love that blue. And just quickly to look at the guitar. Oh, no, come back. No, there we are. So this is an orange amp. This looks like a Fender Blues Junior, I think, at the back. I don't know if anyone's into guitars here, but we love chatting about them sometimes. This is a brand new release from Fender called the Telecaster Acoustasonic, I think. And I remember seeing this guitar being debuted a couple of, like, end of last year, I think. The guitar looks the business. And it doesn't only play like an electric. You can plug it in. It has a single pickup at the back, but it's fully acoustic as well. And I do really think the presentation is something else. It's so peculiar. A Telecaster that looks like an acoustic. The whole debate is whether or not this could be your only guitar. If you're in the space and talking about gigging and everything else, this is pretty fun for what it is. It's solid back and sides. So it's solid wood back and sides with I think the top has been X-braced, like you would expect from an acoustic. Unique. Anyway, we'll get away from that. I really like the blue dial. And we've got some more. Mr. C with a pedal board. Who guessed that? I think I must have flicked through it by mistake. Black Les Paul, the Black Beauty. Who played? I'm pretty sure. I don't know who actually famously played this guitar. Slash was big with this. Orange amps, pedal board to the max. I mean, where do we start? Drivers, suppressors, reverbs, super chorus, carbon copy, flanger, full-born metal, distortion. Where do you even start? Look at the cables. I can tell you, pedal boards, it's like in the watch space when it comes to collecting straps. Pedal boards can be disgusting. My advice for anyone getting into electric guitars, pick up a wah pedal, pick up a fuzz face, you're done. Don't go any further, because then you'll end up with a problem like this, a full-on addiction. I mean, this looks like a wah pedal, I would imagine. You don't need a lot to make your guitar sounding good, but I can tell you, the variety here is just insane. And the Datejust is out of focus, but it's great. So as far as a collection goes, Mr. C, I really like the take on the Rolexes. I mean, they're all in the same ballpark, the same category. And it looks good. It really does look nice and unique. I love it. I mean, it's different. And that's what makes these collection reviews fantastic. Put the wah first, Eric Bell. I agree. A wah pedal is all you really need at the end. Okay, so we're going to carry on through. Thank you for these, Mr. C. Always a pleasure. We saw you earlier. Next up, Nefarion. I always botch your name. Nefarion. Now, I'm hoping I'm getting this right. Firstly, we have a special guest. The name is Carrie, a rescue dog. Got her in the corner there. Going to jump to these two pieces. So we have an Oris Aquas Yoda. Is that the street name? I do not know. They're green, because he says, get a Digitech multi-effect pedal. They're green. Nefarion, it seems like your whole life is green. It's good. It's great. And then the next piece on the right is called an Islander ISL 21. Don't know where to start. But you love your green, and we love our dogs. If anyone would like to share their dogs with the show, all for it. Sadly, I can't share my two girls because they are iets van die verlede, should I say, in Afrikaans speak. But they're just gorgeous watches. I think when it comes to green, the way they've attacked just the color scheme on these pieces, you can see some, here's a great comparison. We see the almost luminous effect of this layout next to the more off-green, what would we say, olive drab effect there. That's one happy dog for sure. I mean, that looks like a photo you could have on a food can, you know, like crazy level of happiness as far as photography goes. Yeah. So talking about the pieces, I mean, green is, we spoke about it earlier, talking about it being one of the most polarizing colors. It's a mod. They do well. Hold on a sec. We'll get the Hulk one of these days. I'll just read there. I need to hit more whiskey. I'm losing it here. Brick Lane said, went to Rolex today and they laughed at me. I think that's pathetic, actually. I think it's pathetic because back in the day, I said, whatever, it's so out of my price range, but I don't care. I went into Audemars Piguet boutique in Harrods, sat down there, tried on a solid gold Royal Oak chronograph when they were, possible, when you could. And they didn't care. There was no criticism. There was no, the one boutique store I always go to is Harrods in London. I don't know why, but it's always been the go-to for me. And yeah, Nefarion, I love this. Let's have a look at another piece. Thank you for this, Nefarion. I want to chat about Rolex a bit more in a sec. Let's first have a look at this. Ferrer, the name Roche, or Roche, I never get this. This is from Neil, and he sent this in one of the last submissions, actually, for the show. This is a full-on world timer, and it's a micro brand from the UK, I think. You said that right. I really like the way they've done that logo. That is superb. I mean, that just gives you the impression of compass, of travel, of geography. Pretty unique. Now, this is a fully loomed dial, so you can appreciate all the elements here. It would be nice to see it glow in the dark, actually. But a world time for this kind of price point, a micro brand, it seems very popular. I don't, Islander, we're talking about here, we're talking about sizes and stuff. Yeah, nice looking piece. I think the presentation, the balance is very good too. For all that it is, as a world timer, you get to appreciate the numerals and the batons and everything there. Looks great. It's clean, symmetrical, clear. Nice looking piece. And next up, thank you for this, Neil. We've got to carry on motoring through. We're coming up to the 3-hour mark as it is. So I'm going to jump to Pat, Rolex Polar Indian Scout. So he's rocking an Indian Scout. And would you believe we have another Polar, another 42 mil. Love this combination. Let's enjoy this for a moment. Mark says that Harrods is the most welcoming boutique in London. I would agree. I am so the first time I ever got to actually get hands-on with a Panda Daytona, one of these, many others, Explorer 39, Submariners of all different metals. I went in with my cousin and we basically said on the day that we had a business deal that we just gone through and we want to have a look at some pieces. Could we go to the back room and check? They were welcoming. They let us in, and it was like the best time you could possibly think of. Now that's not possible. I would agree. But that was like 2015, by the way. So times have changed badly since then. But so many stores are just not interested in catering. In fact, the Harrods, the same Harrods Rolex store that I went to, they weren't anywhere near as accommodating a couple of years later. They weren't interested in service, which was quite bizarre. And the same place, pretty sure the same management and everything too. And just general, other stores, Audemars Piguet, you go in, you have good experiences, you have bad experiences in any store. You can't nail it. Freddie's saying that Vacheron and Bond Street are very friendly. As it is. I mean, JLC, another great shop when it comes to going to ADs, just so helpful and polite. It's interesting. And I guess it's down to day of the week. It's down to busyness. There's so many factors that are equated there too. We're talking department stores are folding. Yeah, I would agree. But I love this combination. I think as far as wearing this watch, remember, wearing a watch on a strap, presence of the watch is brought down on the wrist. So this being 42 mils probably could be worn on smaller wrists a lot easier with a rubber strap. I've got to say, I love the lume and there's chats now about Harrods and it is great. I love the topics. Nice looking lume on this watch. One thing I really admire about the professionals, and the reason why the 214-270 Explorer appeals to me so much, better clasp and the lume. Those are the two elements that I like so much about it. More than anything, actually. Even the size and scale doesn't appeal to me as much as the thought of really good lume and a really good clasp. It's funny here. Like you look at when you talk about being pedantic with watch brands and your choices, but I love this combination. This is rubber B, if I'm not wrong, with the white line running through. Very nice, as Juan says. One of the best loomed watches in the game. I think it is. An Indian Scout. I'm not a motorbike guy at all. So I've been told to swear never to ride a motorbike, just because I've got family members who've had pretty bad experiences. Could go that far. But yeah, I do love my Ducati on occasions. I do love looking at Ducati as a brand. I think their bikes are pretty something. Also, just enjoy the fact that you can get racing bikes, full spec racing bikes that you can take on a track for less than your conventional car. Chromalite looks better in daylight. It does, Eric. I think it does look something unique. Anyway, I'm going to carry on through. Pat, thank you for sending this in. We're jumping to Peter next. I really like this. This is also one of the last submissions. Another Seiko. Can you believe? Seiko SRPC 13K1. Another easy to roll off the tongue piece. Blue on blue, orange hand, accents, just the way it presents. It looks good. And I think he spoke about it being a watch that's in quite high demand nowadays. He might need to tell me. Reed saying, oh, thank you for the super chat, Reed. Really do appreciate it. And all of you in the chat, I've missed you. You're chatting about pubs and you're chatting about Harrods and stores closing and all the rest. Shaisan's saying, what's more rattly, the new Rolex movement rotor or Ducati clutch plate? I wouldn't know. But are they? You can't tell me the Rolex rotors are rattly. That's a bit alarming. I thought they were always quiet. And that's the thing when we talk about quality assurance and where these movements go and what the thinking is and all of that. A lot of the time, brands do skimp on the details. I'd be so angry, I tell you. You spend like 6, 7K on a watch, 10K on a watch, and there's dust inside the dial or whatever. Can you imagine? I would like to know some of your bad experiences. But yeah, blue on orange. You have that typical case of the time period. I do enjoy the idea that the case pretty much circumnavigates the dial and that architecture in there. And it's basically what you would call a chronograph without the pushers, in a sense. It's kind of like your everyday timer, as well as having all the extra details here. Yeah, I mean, as far as it is, Seiko, there's a few more coming up, I think. But can you believe we have more Polar Explorers coming up? It's hilarious. Okay, Peter, thank you for sending this in. Next up, Raymond, where are you, sir? Now, I'm not going to try and butcher this name, so I won't. I wish I was more Spanish, but I'm not. I don't even think there's a drop of Spanish in me. I'm not even going to try. Sorry, I don't want to butcher it. I don't want to, embarrass myself. But this is an interesting piece. So it's called the Churchill, and they made 200 of these pieces, left-hand drive. You said, or limited edition. Sorry. Now this, I don't know if this is actually an enamel dial or not, but I think as far as presentation goes, it's quite special. It's got a day-date complication. I've never heard of Churchill being assigned to this watch and all the rest. Someone might need to help me out here a little bit, but he did also send me the presentation box, which I think is something else. Now, this is not by any means a big brand, a big name. Made in Havana. Wow, that's cool. So again, I'm not going to try and butcher the name as is. Hold on a sec. The cigar manufacturer. This looks like a humidor, so I'm guessing there has to be some linkage there. I really don't know. I don't know the brand, so I'm gonna botch it. Phonetic, Cuervo. Thank you, Raymond. Crack eggshell dial. It does look really good. And this I don't know if it was aesthetically done like this or if it was actually heated to break. If it is in fact enamel painted, box made from humidors. Okay, so this has to all do with a cigar manufacturer. Ladies and gents, I don't smoke. So wouldn't know where to even start. And Francois and Egalatine, I'm sorry, I'm getting your names wrong often. 2 a.m. in Paris, need to go. Thanks. It's absolute pleasure having you, and absolute pleasure having Parisians watching the show too. Everyone who's been a part of the show, it's an absolute joy, the fact that we can engage and have so much fun doing this. So, and something says, there used to be a company that imported Swiss watches to Cuba. Aha. Okay, they're not technically related, but they do have the whole cigar Cuba connection. So I would imagine similar to how the Gondola and all those Pateks got sent out to that part of the world back in the day. Interesting. Guys, again, your knowledge of this history is much. Churchill War, did he really, Raymond? Somehow I don't believe it. His watch was a, I'm drawing a blank. I know that he got a Datejust sent to him by the good old Hans. Great info and something. Yes, Eric, thank you. I mean, I like that idea. A humidor being the box inspiration. This looks like bird's eye maple. Could it be? Someone might need to correct me there, but this kind of looks like a bird's eye maple box. Nice leather interior. Gotta love our leather interiors. And then the hinges are fantastic. It does look like a humidor. I mean, all of this, that all adds to it, right? That's great. It's nice seeing some diversity. Never featured this brand before. Yes, he did, Raymond. So he did actually, in fact, wear one of these. Great. Unique, different. I love the numerals. Definitely a watch. Looks like a watch of its time. And the way you wind it, I think there's something special about that you wind it with the case back or something. This feature here has something to do with it. Might need to... Thank you, Astro. That's a good line there. Okay, going to carry on through next to Richard. Thank you for sending this in, Raymond. If you're still in the chat, yes, you are. Great. Nice looking piece. It's great seeing some unique stuff, always. Next to Richard, and this is the one and only no, there's another one. There's 2 Panerais we're going to be seeing in a second. Richard sends in, you can't go wrong with this. First, I love the presentation. I love this photo here. So this is a PAM 01055. I think it's the only Panerai that I've done a video about before, for obvious reasons. I think they did a great job with this watch, relating to color, relating to presence. I think it's 42 mils. It's a submersible with little bit of an X factor. It's a great everyday wearing watch. I think he does mention, Richard did mention to me that he does wear this watch every day. Puddle diver, Eric says. And I think there's just so much to it. I love the color. It's very usable on a daily basis. The flat matte dial is great. The fact that they match the date window inside there, olive drab. Yeah, Thomas, I mean, it works. And I mean, Thomas, this is a watch for you, right? We're going to be having a look at your, what is your Pam? The reference from yours is the Luminor 1950, the tobacco dial, yeah. So it's unique. It's great. I'm wondering if Pam could bring down the sizes even more and see what would happen. Bringing it down to like 38, see if they could dabble in that area too. But Jacinta says, loves the Pam, 42 mil. It's a good size for what it is. And it has the right amount of presence as well as being something more versatile for everyday wear. I mean, the original Pams were like, what, in the 50s, and it's crazy. So yeah, Richard, great looking piece. I think it's subtle. How can you say this watch is subtle? It looks like something that you could like take on an army with. But yeah, it looks fantastic. Moving on. Richard, thank you. To Rob next. Now this piece is pretty cool. Now immediately I see the Red Bull racing shirt, and I'm thinking that Rob has an affiliate or affiliation to Red Bull, because I actually had a very close call with getting a job with the Red Bull Formula One team in Milton Keynes way back when. But yeah, so this is a Heuer Monza. And this is a special piece, actually. We haven't featured this watch before on the channel, but this is actually a part of the reissue video that's coming out next week. Chronograph reissues, there's lots of them. This one won awards. Don't know what the awards were exactly. I don't know if they were watchmaking awards or not, but this has like a PVD coated titanium case or something crazy. It's such a good looking watch. It's, you think of the Monaco. The Monaco was just this piece that they pumped out. There was no rhyme or reason to it at all. They had a few months to get it made to compete with the other brands that were trying to push out their automatic calibers. This is so much more refined as far as the Monaco goes. You know, you have, I love the way they've done the cushion case with this awesome bezel inside here. Think of other brands that could use this as their motif and do such a good job with it. It's a great looking case. I think that's the aspect that drives me to it first. And then we look at the dial. Red accent. It's a pulse. I didn't even know it was a pulsation dial. How cool is that? Red highlights on the hands, on the sub-dials here. The faux patina, love it or hate it. It's okay. It looks good for what this watch is. Also enjoy that the date's offset. And this is just it in presentation mode. Tag Heuer, I think it was a nice little callback there because, as we know, Heuer brand being assigned to Red Bull and Aston Martin and the Red Bull F1 team. Can't say I'm someone who follows F1 much anymore because it's just become so typical. You know, there's no like drama, or watch F2 and F3 to really enjoy the hunt and the fight. Yeah, but as it is, I mean, Formula One has been cut. All the sports have been stopped recently. Really like the Monza. Had a 3-hand version. Gave it to my dad, Thomas. That's awesome. Yeah, so the Monza is one that speaks to me. Huh? I really like the, what would you call it? Like a cushion case transitional TV. I don't know what you would arrange it as, but everything, the racing strap, the presence, it looks nice. It really does look like a watch of the 70s. You have the typical, you know, Speedmaster Mark II, 1655. Every watch of the 70s inspired handset there. But yeah, it's nice to see a Monza. Never had one featured on the show before, and as it is, variety is always a pleasure. Moving next, and the strap is perfect, yeah, for sure. I mean, a racing strap, that's what it is. And Astro saying, yes, agree, fellow despondent motorsport. Yeah, fully. The sport has really gone downhill in a way for me, at least. And next up from Tarek. Now, I know Tarek is someone who's sent in a lot of IWC pieces in the past, and he decided this time to send in Tissot, a brand that we never speak about, never talk about. It's in the same kind of camp as Tag Heuer in a way. It has this stigma to it now because it's not as driven as it was back in the day, you know. But I mean, it's a great brand. We actually feature a Tissot in this reissued chronograph. What was the watch? I can't remember. I cannot remember. There's like 35 of them. So get into Porsche GT Cup. Oh, absolutely, Jacinta. Yeah, for sure. Also love Le Mans Cup. I love the Blancpain series. Blancpain Racing series was, Yeah, and Mark P saying F1 was my favorite sport, now it's stale. I tell you, my dad, huge fan, used to watch the races in Johannesburg, in Cape Town. I think they also had a track. No, they never. I don't think they ever raced in Cape Town. But in the 90s, and I mean, those are the golden days. The 80s and 90s, 70s even. Yeah, that was real racing. I don't know what. So this is called a Le Locle. I hope I'm getting that right. That is it, Eric. And I do enjoy the Roman numerals. Just the small. Look how they've done the V here of the Romans. How they've been accentuated here. It's definitely not a watch for everyone. I don't know how these pieces are made, if they've been turned or what else. It does kind of look like a Zenith, as 73 Math says, Le Locle. Probably botched that terribly. But yeah, nice looking piece. Tissot is an old brand, eh? 1853. It's sad that they have lost that limelight, that presence that they had back in the day. And Mr. C, thank you so much for the super chat. Oh, it's a pleasure, absolute pleasure. Your collection is great. I really enjoy the fact that it's scaled to your wrist size instead of it trying to fulfill what everyone else is doing in the space, which is just getting big watches for the sake of it. Flying 4 as what's it called, the 5? Flying 5. Hold on, I missed the chat there. I think just since it proper Roman numeral 4. This is the watchmaker's 4, isn't it? I'm pretty sure, but I don't know if anyone knows this who's watching currently. I'm sure there's lots of you who've been dropping out recently, but what makes the Watchmaker's 4 unique is that you draw a horizontal line to the 8, and you see how there's a balance. Squint your eyes and see that there's a balance there between the 2 and the 12. You can actually draw a very symmetrical triangle between the points, and it looks much clearer visually. That's the element that makes it attractive. Yeah, but thank you, Mr. C, again for the super chat, and for the rest of you, catching up. The company started by father and son, Tissot. And there's another piece. This is the, oh geez, what am I going to say here? The Chemin de Tourelle. I'm not even going to try and pronounce. Powermatic 80. Is that an 80-hour power reserve? Now again, Tarek is big on his IWCs. If this is the right Tarek, I hope. He sent in so many, at least like 6 over the time. Interesting to see that he's into Tissot as well. Le Locle, Lake Geneva, Julian, is it? The lake. It sounds pretty decent. I don't speak French or Swiss. I try to. It just turns out to be butchery. Yeah. So nice looking piece. I mean, I also really like this aspect. Being Swiss, you've got these crosses running across the dial here. Looks good. Really nice presentation. Again, Tissot is a brand. Old, it's well known. It's just sad that the name isn't as punchy as it used to be. Lugs are falling off the wrist. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. Photography lies a lot of the time. Just the angle of the wrist and the tightness of the strap can affect the way the lugs sit. And it can be difficult to get good shots. Believe me, someone with pretty small wrists, you get very obsessed with those details. Okay, next up, Tarek, thank you for sending these in. We're jumping to another vintage Rolex. Anyone here still watching? This is from Thomas, and Thomas was here earlier. Whoa, oh no, jumped the gun. So, the only 1675 that we'll be featuring, this is a very specific version of the 1675 because, funnily enough, I'm looking at the recommended videos for this channel, and it says they're reviewing 200 plus watches from Philips, Geneva. This was the watch that sold at the Geneva Philips auction 2 months ago. I'm actually looking at the thumbnail of the stream. This is the watch. So if you go into it and you go into the show, it's on my side, it's suggested right here at the bottom of the screen here. But this piece, the reason why he picked it up, he loves his vintage pieces. I've actually reviewed Thomas's collection in the past. It's also on the channel. He loves his vintage watches. He wears an Explorer as a daily, but he has a vintage Blancpain. He has a few vintage GMTs. And the dial is what spoke to him the most. The fact that this watch is so clean when you look at the dial. And the fuchsia finish, of course, is what everyone loves. That pink lady, as many say. It's a nice looking watch. Really is nice. And the fact that he's wearing it, I think, is special too. These watches deserve to be worn. I find it quite sad that these pieces are being bought and put into safes when they should be worn and enjoyed. Because, I mean, they've spent their whole lives being worn. Why not just, carry on through with that tradition? I need to take another hit from the bourbon. Hold on a sec. As far as specs go, I think it's a gorgeous looking watch. 1675 had such a unique way that the case was done and the crown guards. I don't know if he's still in the chat. He was here earlier, but it's like 2 a.m. in Paris, so I'd imagine he's gone to sleep. But yeah, gotta love a 1675, especially the fuchsia. Imagine if the hand also faded to a pink. Wouldn't that be cool? And I believe he has 2 of these. I think he has another 1675 in his collection too. And everyone's talking about Zenith and Viso dates and everything else. I'm missing out on you guys here, Eric. Okay, going to carry on next to the next Thomas Burnett, who's in the chat. He sends in his beloved PAM 352 Luminor from 1950 on a Stingray strap from Aaron at Combat Straps. Have you ever seen a Stingray strap look like this before? I can't actually believe that this material exists, because, I mean, I've seen Stingrays in the flesh. I don't even know where they would take this from. I'm guessing the underside of the Stingray, or probably the top region. Amazing. I mean, it looks like dinosaur skin. It's so peculiar. And I mean, it's crazy when you think about just the variety of straps that you can get nowadays. Soon you'll get dolphin, you'll get seal, you know, just the aquamarine, you get the whole sea life. And this Panerai has seen the works, as you can probably tell by the scratches and scuffs. I think Thomas had a bit of an incident and he used the hedge trimmer on it back in the day. So this is his beta watch. He loves wearing it. A Luminor, I think this is also 42 mil, but it's just great. You know, it's got all the presents. It's got a tobacco dial. Puppies. Moppy says, next you'll have puppies as your, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's no limit. I want a unicorn strap. You know what I mean? It's unbelievable. Jacinta, thank you for the super chat. And it's really nice. I mean, can you imagine what other varieties you can get in this zone? I look at it and I think stone. It doesn't. Amazing. The way animals adapt to their environments. And I'm a big fan when it comes to, I don't know if we have any biologists or marine biologists or any zoologists or veterinarians in the chat, but I have some good friends who are in that field and I love learning from them. Coming from Africa, how can you not? I mean, I've been brought up with this stuff. So you pretty much live alongside nature, as I would say most Aussies do as well. You just love learning about these creatures. Yeah, I'm sure anyone who's been on a game drive in Africa knows pigeon. Hell, that's not a bad idea. Or seagull. Freaking hell, I tell you, living on the South Coast, I would make patented seagull straps, because I can't stand the freaking thing. Okay, carrying on through, ladies and gents, Minotaur idea for sure. It's great. You guys are awesome. Moving next, Thomas, as always, thank you. Jumping to Tillman. What is Tillman wearing? Do you guess? Do you assume? Yep. Another Polar Explorer. This is literally number 5 or number 6 in one sitting, which I find is absolutely hilarious. It's funny. It's so funny. We haven't seen one Explorer 1, but we've seen 5 Polar Explorers. Not one Black Dial Polar Explorer, no, Black Dial Explorer 2, 5 Polar Explorers. Can you understand how peculiar? So yeah, it's great. So this watch he just picked up, and he's been debating. Actually, look at the last show that we had 2 weeks ago. We had a look at his collection, 4 watches. This, an original Lange one from 1995, beautiful, a Omega Globemaster, and a Nomos Tangenta or a Ahoy or something. I can never get those damn names right. But this was his most recent pickup, and he's one and done Rolex. This is him. I love that. I think it's so special. So have a look at that last show if you'd like to catch up and see that. Bobby Alexander saying, visited South Africa once. It's amazing. It is an amazing country. Has lots of issues, lots of problems behind the scenes. But as a tourist, you can have an amazing time there. Polarized. Love it. Bobby's saying, love the potential blue sub. Might be spot on. No, I mean, it's all guesswork. There is no validity in any of it. It would be nice. It's nice to give the thumbs up and give the finger to everyone all the naysayers, but still, I mean, it's all guesswork. I just love the thought of backtracking the process and linking it to Tudor as a brand and all the rest. Okay, Tillman, beautiful watch. I hope you're still, if you're here, I think I saw you, don't know, but I hope you're enjoying this piece and loving it to death. This was his summer watch that he was wearing at the office. Nice, great piece. Moving on next to Tom. We've got a few more. We've got about 10 more pieces to go. And at the very end, we have Russell's pieces, of course. I don't know if he's still here, but his watches will be coming up. What are my thoughts of a sub tapering the lugs? I think it's good. I do appreciate it. They don't need to do a lot of work. They can be slight. Because there is just such, I mean, looking at the 42 mil as an example right here, there is such an elegance to how, this is how I rationalize it, how the lugs taper into the bracelet and how there is a relationship between the lugs and the crown guards. You see that flow. There's this diagonal share between the parts. That looks so much more graceful, even though the 42 mil size might not fit everyone. Similar to the Yachtmaster 42, even though it's a bigger size, the way that the lugs work with the crown guards, much more acceptable. It's not in your face. The lines aren't divided. But then in saying that, you're dealing with a Submariner, which is a different watch altogether. It's a professional diving watch. So I don't know. We've spoken about it to death most of the time. I decline. An Englishman pretending to be a Scot, an Irishman pretending he's Italian. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I am. I'm all sorts. I'm South African, English, Scottish, bit of German. Carrying on. Thank you for this, Tillman. To Tom. Now, Tom sends in, this is an original Smith's dashboard clock. And it is actually amazing to think how Smith's as a brand was featured everywhere in the 60s and 70s. So this was from the 20s or the 30s. How's that? So the history of Smith's, if I'm not wrong, they were manufacturing motor car parts until the Second World War ended, and they actually got Swiss manufacturers to come across to make made in England watches. And Smith's as a brand, I mean, through the 50s, 60s, 70s, they were making dashboard clocks in Lotus Formula One cars. They were making all the clocks in all the Spitfires that we know, airplanes, you know. It's incredible. And it's sad to see the brand disappear as the quartz crisis came in and so fit hit the shan. But I really enjoy them as a micro brand, and I love wearing them all the time. I hear Dinkies go to, oh, yes. Yes, I love it. I mean, that debacle, that debate, hitting the fisherman's friend, simply the best, cherry flavor. That has to be one of the biggest, most hilarious memes of the century. What a zinger. They botched that one, boy. Fair on. I think they are. I mean, dashboard clock, next step. It's so good. I mean, that whole, and if you look at their social media, every single post they put out, go and enjoy Hodinkie's Instagram. I shouldn't be laughing at it, but these guys are so ruthless, you know, saying, does it cost 5,900? You know, does it cost the price of 2 owls and everything? It's just, yeah. We can talk. I actually want to do a video on the travel clock and chat about it a bit more. Thank you so much, Jacinta. Rose gold, we would love to see some more of those. Yeah, for sure. I really love your rose gold Aquanaut. That would be nice to feature. I think it's a very special watch. There's some pieces that do rose gold better than others, I think, that feel more true to the design of the watch. I think the color should correspond with the watch's design in a way. We can chat about that in a moment. Thank you for this, Tom. A vintage Smith's clock, always a pleasure. Dashboard clock from the 20s or 30s. I mean, just jumping to Taicho. I'm going to botch your name 100 times, but Tycho, or I'm going to say Tycho. I hope I'm getting your name there. But he is a student currently, and he is working his way through life, as is the case. And he started with a Orient Kamasu. I don't know the brand. I don't know the watch itself. But getting into this hobby as a student, I think is pretty special. It's around the time when I got into it too, about, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And like I said in the very beginning, with that Smith's Everest, the Smith's W10 that I wear, I wish I got into the hobby as a teenager, getting to enjoy the basics of mechanics and the automatic movement. I want to actually talk about it a bit more. Nice handset, Thomas says, I agree. And Astro Fantastica says, enough has been said about the travel clock, save your time. Oh, I love it. It never fails to make me grin, because I do grin on occasion. Yeah, this is a nice looking piece. I must say the handset's great. The presentation's nice. The triangle, also enjoy how they've done the batons. But just referring back to student, I actually like to have a bit of a diatribe here and talk about this for a sec. If I got into watches as a teenager in high school, I was in boarding school, right? A very fancy boarding school. By the grace of God, I was very lucky. And when I think back to that time, I can't think of a better watch. This is one aspect. If you look at that Smith's W10 video that I made, I want to get back up to the watch just for shiz and giggles. If I wore this watch as a high school student, I think it would have just helped me tremendously. Like, what can I say? Jeffrey from Shanghai, welcome, good morning. I took everything for granted as a teenager, Neferion says. I agree. At 16, 17, 18, the amount of times I slept in, the amount of times I missed afternoon classes, the amount of detentions I got because of it, because I didn't wear watches back then. I think to myself, no straw boater hats. No, Eric, not a freaking chance. This watch to me just speaks to that student. I'd love, if I had a son right now, this would be the watch I'd be giving him, or if I had a daughter, because it lets you appreciate the mechanics of something hand wound. It's an everyday wearing watch. It doesn't try to pretend to be something it's not. And that's just great. But I prefer the Seiko Saab or the Everest. I have a soft spot for the Everest. I've never been much of a fan of the Saab. Good question though, Bobby. But it's just that thought. When I think of the detentions I got for missing classes and the demerits and the, just have a small little everyday watch that you can wear, going to the gym, on the sports field, use it everywhere. Anyway, that's my diatribe. I should have started the show with that earlier, but yeah, alas. As a student, I think it's great getting into the hobby. Here's another piece from him, a Seiko 5. Love this shot. This is a really nice Flieger dial. But don't you agree? It's one of those things where, like, you kick yourself a little bit. Because watches have never been big in my family at all. And it's just one of those things that hit you. Straw boater hats. I love that, Eric. No, I didn't. Well, that's Saks, eh? Or was that Ronda Bosch? Saks. Anyway, the rest of you here, morning from Singapore, all of you who are joining, thank you so much. Those of you who are still in the chat, we've been running the show for 3 hours. You can scrub all the way back to the beginning of the show and start if you're still watching this live. So highly recommend. The beginning of the show was great. We saw lots of diversity. But everyone who's currently joining, who's been a part of the show for the last 3 hours, you guys are amazing. Are we hitting the 3 hour mark? Oh no. I've got to carry on. Tycho, thank you for sending these in. I've got to speed through these now. Another Seiko from Varant. Seiko King Samurai. SBG 37. What's the other reference? Come on. SBG 37 something or other. That's it. Prospex. Gotta love the white dial. We've seen so many Seikos during the show, right? It's insane. Not just Grand Seikos, but Prospex. Lots of Prospex models. I think he just picked this watch up and love it. Must say that the hands and the way the dial works and the Cyclops, 43.5. That's a cool Samurai. Shaitan says it does look very nice. Hold on a second. We're talking about audio files. I have a feeling we have the audio file here still in the chat, and I've forgotten your name. If you're still here, this is a very fancy set of headphones that I forgot to write down that he mentioned. But he says he might give me some advice on audio. That would be great. Bobby, is that you? No, it's not Bobby. Astro Fantastica, that's you. Please tell us what these headphones are because they look amazing. But yeah, such a great piece. Everyone's saying it's an awesome looking watch. It does definitely tick the boxes for a polar panda styled dive piece that's very contrasting. Meza Imperines. Oh, I'm going to botch it. Lovely dial and texture. Russell, it's so good having you here. I can't believe you're still awake. We're going to get straight into your pieces in a moment. Another shot from Varant. This is the Interstellar. The Hamilton Interstellar. I made a video all about watches and movies and failed to mention this in it, and predominantly because I didn't feel like it linked up to the character of Murph, or what was his name, the pilot. Damn it, I'm going to botch his name now. I'm not even going to try. It's been 3 hours, you can imagine. But audio, again, we've got beautiful headset in the corner here. I need some help in this game, so please give me your knowledge. Anyway, we're going to carry on through. This is such a cool piece. I mean, it's a real field Flieger styled watch. I do enjoy the date. What was the name of this piece? Cooper. Yeah, so this is the Hamilton Cooper, right? And then you had the Murph, which is another reissue piece in the line. But I've got to carry on through the pieces here. A shot from Vince. Thank you for these, Varant. Sennheiser, here we go. Sennheiser HD 820, Shaitan says. Geez, like, you guys are so good with your tech. And last but not least, we have Vince sending in Orient, another one, Kamosu, the gorgeous grape dial. And don't go yet, ladies and gents, because now we're jumping to the horology. If you're still here, there's 250 of you still watching. We're jumping to Lange next. Unique Langes that we don't ever see. You're going to enjoy this from our man Russell, who's in the chat. So yeah, gorgeous dial, I must say. It's like a cherry burst. Reminds me of red cherry from those 50s era Stratocasters, actually, and Mustangs in a way. Hamilton Matthew McConaughey Murph is a lovely one. It is a cool looking piece. Funnily enough, I watched the film a couple of days ago and thought I'm going to try and do some kind of linkage to the time and how that movie works next to the watches as well. I can't even remember what the theme was. You got to know that my drawing board of ideas are just a mess. Really love this color though, Vince. Thank you for sending it in, and everyone else who's been a part and sending these pieces. It's insane. It's always a pleasure. But now we're jumping to some hectic stuff. So, and we've gone past the 3.5 hour mark. So we're going to spend another 10 minutes doing this, and then going to have to sign off. Interstellar. Thank you, Raymond. Yeah. Okay, so let's begin with the Zeitwerk, I think, right? That's a good way to start. Okay. So we like our Langes. We see them on occasion. Now, Russell likes to collect the impressive pieces in the line. He's a great guy. He has a collection of about 12 pieces, which I think is pretty special. It's not overdone, and all the pieces that he collects are the best of the line. He has more Pateks than Langes, but what makes the Phantom so unique is it's fully glow in the dark. I don't think he sent in any glowing shots, but this was a watch he was wearing today, I think. We had a bit of sunshine on the South Coast. But yeah, if Russell is still in the chat, you've got to enjoy the Phantom. And there's some beautiful shots that he sent to me. We chat on WhatsApp. He's such a great guy, super down to earth. And it's so nice. It's so nice chatting to a collector like Russell, who doesn't only appreciate this stuff, but he can be a part of this entire show for 3 hours, listen to all the other pieces, seeing what everyone else collects, and appreciate that too. That's someone who's into this hobby, right? So this being the Phantom, I mean, you can tell the crazy numerals. This is fully see-through, so when it does glow in the dark, you see the full presentation. But the Phantom is something pretty unique. And what I love is that we're not only looking at the Phantom, but we're looking at something else that was pretty recently released. And they share a very similar relationship when we look at their designs. Carl, welcome. Start from the beginning. Welcome. Thank you for joining. The show has been very good. The variety has been superb. Everything from, where do we start? I mean, Grand Seiko, Breitlings, lots of variety. So there is one of the presentation shots of the Phantom. Don't worry, you'll get a movement shot in a sec. But all the details, he does have a channel. So he does, you'll see him as Russell 996. He does have a channel where he does wrist rolls and shows us these watches in more detail. But it's a unique watch. It's definitely not a watch for everyone, that's for sure. Must remember that this is by far the most technically complicated watch that Lange has done. It took them years to get this movement right, because it's all well and good saying, hey, let's make a mechanical watch that has a digital movement. The thought's nice, but the actual execution, it's got like 1,000 parts or something daft. And it's got a huge power reserve. It's really unique. It has this grandfather clock aesthetic behind it, which is something that probably speaks to a lot of people. But there's more. We're going to have a good look at the movement. This is also a great shot. I love the photos that he sends, because the shots generally, he always likes to play with the light, get the presence going. It has a grand, like I said, grandfather clock, smiling face. It's not automatic, truth fears. No, it's a manual wind. You'll have a look at the movement in a moment. Battery operated toy. No, definitely isn't. You'll see the movement in a moment. But yeah, it's a stunning watch. It's so unique and different. Has this, I don't know, how would you say it? Has this playful face to it in a way. It's, you think of Daytonas, with that opens, like, expressive sort of, it has a mouth to it. It kind of looks like the grill of a car in a sense. Don't worry, we're not done yet. We're going to check out the movement for a little bit, and this is the creme de la creme. And I mean, if we know Lange and their movements, we've had some amazing shows. If you look back, there have been 12 of these shows already, and Russell always contributes with amazing stuff. And we've had comparisons between Lange and Patek, top We've had a look at the 50, the 51, it was 5370 and the Datograph, and just how German next to Swiss, how their movements are done. So go to the end of those shows if you like, over the last couple of months. If you go into my actual channel and you look at past live shows, you'll see there's a couple back to back. Go to the end of them and you'll always see Russell's watches featured. And we've had a look at all sorts. He has an amazing set of pieces. Everything we've looked at Nautiluses before and Aquanauts and the full stream. But the unique details about this watch, balance cock is engraved individually by someone, and only one person has this signature of engraving. And all the details, I mean, it's intense. What I like, when we looked at Lange next to Patek, Lange is by no means delicate. When you look at these Patek chronographs, you generally see that a lot of their components look to be quite fragile, very spring related, you know? The German way is generally built with mass behind it. You can see the bridges are not these finicky little things. They look solid. I love the filleting here. Probably can't see it very well, but the filleting on these edges looks superb. How many jewels does this watch have? Like 50 or something, something ridiculous. But huge balance. The mainspring, I want to know what's the power reserve like, Russell? Could you tell us? It's a remontoire. Yeah, it's so unique. And as far as side folks go, the Phantom is top of the line. We'd love to know the specs, but details, as 73 Math says, yeah. I must send you a high res. For sure, Russell. For the next show, send as many as you like. And I need to get your wife's Patek Nautilus too later on. But the watch that I wanted to, 36 hours. I'm sure it's more. I think it's like 40 something, surely. Only 36 hours, really? That's amazing, Russell. Thank you. And carry on. But the watch I wanted to save till the end. Are you ready for this? What does that look like to you? Now, we have spoken about this watch to death before. We've critiqued it. We've laughed at it. We've scorned it. Thank you so much. Chasing Time, thank you so much for the super chat. We love the streams. We love them too. That's why we're here. That's what makes it fun. You guys are asking about the price of this watch. Yeah, I tell you, yeah. So having a look at this watch, what is this to you? It's the Odyssey, or the Odysseus, or the Achilles, but it's on a strap. And we've actually he sent me a few photos in the past, back and forth, chatting about it. And I've always wanted to see this watch on a strap. And this looks like a leather strap, actually. Might be wrong. But this combination looks so much more approachable than on a bracelet. Can you agree or disagree on that point? This looks so much better to me visually. And what I love is that there is this great relationship between both the Phantom. Let's get a better shot of what's a good, that's probably the best. See how those windows work. The direct relationship between these two watches. I wouldn't say night and day. It's pretty much on par. Anyway, it was mentioned about googly eyes and everything. I agree. I think there's this. It's a very divisive piece. I love this watch. I don't care about the googly. Okay, Mark. It's still a watch that doesn't sit very well with me. I find it very peculiar. It looks so much better on a strap. Really does feel like a Lange now. But even so, I think comparing these two watches and seeing just how they were tackled, you can see that relationship. You've got the power reserve at the top, the two windows on either side, sub-seconds. And this, I would imagine this was the core inspiration behind this piece when it was made. But the color is fantastic. Also seen an amazing, the latest one that they've released on white gold with a leather strap, I think, or a rubber strap. It's beautiful fluting inside the dial. It has a gray dial. I feel like Russell would like to pick one up. Maybe. Russell, actually reply yes or no. Would you like to pick up that new white gold variant with the gorgeous gray dial and strap? I know this was difficult to secure because these are pretty new and recent that have come out. But yeah, I think as a pairing goes, this one I thought would be nice to end the show with. Also, really, you don't like it. Can I say that I actually prefer it over this one? That's just me. I think as far as a pairing goes and seeing how this watch presents itself as a sports watch, it's very understated for what it is, especially when you see this arrangement here. And Chasing Time says it looks better on a rubber strap for some reason. Find the watch very Lange Söhne, regardless of what others say. Yeah, you can definitely like close your eyes and you can look at the watch in a flash and say, well, there's definitely a relationship. All the cases are identical. That's easy to understand, clear cut. The aesthetics are generally the same. I think they just went a step too far with the bracelet in a sense. They made it a bit too hardcore and heavy for what it is. But this arrangement here just does it. Looks fantastic. So this is what makes these shows great. We get to see everything from entry level, $200, $300 to the price of a house. And it's always a joy. So yeah, and there's chat going on about battle on price. Yeah, the prices, I don't even think we'll talk about prices of these because they'll probably make you cough out your coffee or your tea, or whatever you're drinking. Custom prototype strap. Hands are sublime. It speaks to the Lange DNA. I fully agree. Also enjoy the texture, by the way. Have a look at the texture on the dial. We've actually featured this, I think, on last week's show or the week before. I don't know. Again, there's 12 episodes of these, and Russell always delivers with amazing pieces at the end. And I love it. It's like tradition. Russell's always at the end to cap off whatever we've been looking at. So those who join in for the first hour and they leave, they miss the special money shot at the very end, you know? Anyway, ladies and gents, we've been running now for 3 hours, 40 minutes, almost exactly. And it's been a hell of a good time. I've really enjoyed it. It's been so good. Taking those 2 weeks off has revitalized me for sure, because I can tell you, it can be exhausting running 3-hour shows every weekend and having to prepare and but this has been a good one. It really has been. You've all been great. The chats have been fantastic. I love the ribbing. I love the sarcasm. And I really hope you're all doing well, looking after yourself, keeping yourselves busy, and just enjoying the watches, because that's what makes this hobby great. We flit in and out often. I mean, it's difficult to sometimes be motivated to talk about watches because you see them all the time, and you know, this doing what I do, you see them every day and you think, oh, it's getting a bit much. But there's always something else about it that brings you back. You need to just break down what about it speaks to you and why, and you can have a great time just developing your love for the hobby as it is. And I see lots of thank yous. It's an absolute pleasure. Everyone who's been here and been a part of the show. Apologies for the microphone. I said it in the beginning, but the Sennheiser packed up on me and I'm really peed off about it. So I'm gonna have to throw that in the bin and look at some other brands. I think I need a proper broadcasting headset. Anyway, all the rest of you, thank you. I'm going to close this off now because we've been running for a good long time. And stop the screen share. It's great. I remember how to use this after so long. Sorry for setting the date wrong, Russell. We weren't even looking at the date. It's another problem. I either look at the date or I don't. And it's just, yeah, it's always the case. You guys, the microphone's fine. Chasing time, thank you. But what has been my personal favorite, 73 Matt says? Difficult, very difficult. I do love that A384. That's a watch that keeps pulling me back. It's a watch that you're wearing, so I mean, it's ideal. If you missed it in the beginning, we had a look about two hours in or so. Beautiful A384 on a gay Frey bracelet. That was the one that sung to me the most. If all of you are catching up with this show, again, I have to say this as another precursor, because YouTube's processing is so slow, you're going to miss the first hour and a half, but you will be able to catch up in the next few days. As you're watching this now, you can go to the very beginning of the stream and catch up. But for those of you watching as the stream ends, sorry, you only see the last 2 hours, unfortunate. But yeah, as is. Thank you, ladies and gents, so much for being a part of the show. Look after yourselves. Good night. Have a fantastic Sunday, wherever you are in the world. And we can do this again in 2 weeks' time. I think it's good having a bi-monthly thing, not every weekend. But yeah, send your submissions in. My emails are always open. And yeah, see you in the next one. Next week, reissue chronographs. It's an SOB of a video. 20 minutes of editing so far, and it's still not finished. It's going to be a 35-minute video, I think. Thomas, thank you for the super chat, man. Thank you. We're going to catch up on WhatsApp after this, I'm sure. Head over to my Patreon. Jeez, I need to do something about that. I really, for all of you who are a part of Patreon, can't thank you. I need to do like a separate video promoting it and stuff. Anyway, I could talk for another hour. You guys have been great. Look after yourselves, sleep well, and enjoy your Sunday. It's going to be a cookout day for me tomorrow, so I'll be rocking my Smiths, having a good time. Hopefully there's sun on the South Coast. Who knows? Lots of love, everyone. Take care. See you in the next one.